So here's Carney making his way into the building.
A beautiful rendition of "O Canada." The crowd definitely very much getting into the spirit of things. Feels a little bit like Canada Day here in Ottawa. That's the Prime Minister.
I thought of the exact same thing, actually. Yeah. It does feel like July 1st.
Yeah.
And Diana Carney, of course, behind the Prime Minister. Of course, when the Landau arrives here to the Senate chamber, as we mentioned, there will be a 100-person guard of honor from the 3rd Battalion of the Royal Canadian Regiment, an inspection of the guard and the band, followed by a 21-gun salute. And the fact that the Prime Minister is now entering the chamber gives you a sense that things are imminent, but I use that term imminent loosely because the throne speech was supposed to get underway at about 11 o'clock. The state Landau was supposed to leave the Bank of Canada around this time, but we're hearing things are about 10 or 15 minutes delayed.
And the usher of the Black Rod now making his way. This is the chief liaison, essentially, between the monarchy and the government. His name is Greg Peters, and it's a very symbolic role. It's actually really symbolic even if the king weren't here. At the start of any parliamentary session, there's a process whereby the usher of the Black Rod goes and gets all the members of parliament, and then also kind of gets things started in the Senate with the Speaker of the Senate. It is a very crucial role to Parliament writ large, but it is particularly crucial when the monarch is present, as is the case today.
And the role of the Black Rod actually goes back 600 years. I mean, this goes way back in the constitutional system, and it is quite a tradition. I mean, the Black Rod, the usher of the Black Rod, takes the Black Rod and then knocks on the doors of the Commons 3 times. And basically, when the Governor General is sitting, says that the Governor General desires to see you. Given that the King is in town today, he'll say that the King commands to see you. Those MPs will then go to the Senate and hear this speech from the throne. The Black Rod, by the way, the original Black Rod, was destroyed in the fire in Parliament, and then the UK gifted a new one to Canada a couple of years later. So that one, the new one, not that new, but the one that was replaced, has been in use ever since.
And you can see there the crowds that are lining up in anticipation of King Charles and Queen Camilla and their journey in that horse-drawn carriage across Wellington. You can see some members of the RCMP there as well. Let's throw it over to our colleague Judy Trin, who is in the middle of those crowds. Judy, tell me a bit about what the people who have gathered to see the King and Queen are telling you about why they're there.
Well, Vashi, you know, this is not the first time that the throne speech has been used to unify Canada in the face of forces that want to tear the country apart. In 1977, when Queen Elizabeth II was here, Canada was facing the domestic threat of Quebec separatism that wanted to separate from Canada. I can tell you that just a few minutes ago, we had protesters here waving a flag in support of Trump and against the monarchy. And this crowd that you see, which are numbering thousands strong, basically started chanting elbows up. So you see young children here and across the generations. Now, one of the very first people to gather here today was Joanne Bray and her husband, Wayne McDonald. They're with me now, and I wanted to get a sense, Joanne, about why you felt it was necessary to come out here more than nearly 2 hours before this procession even started.
Well, we tried to see the King yesterday at Lansdowne, and the crowds were big, and so we didn't succeed, but it was a beautiful day. So today we went out for a walk, and we decided why not try to get a good place to see the King. I think it's important, so we wanted to be here.
You were saying earlier that you didn't consider yourself a monarchist, but something about this moment has stirred these feelings of patriotism in you. What about it has stirred these emotions?
Well, I think we are at a moment where sometimes our history and our democracy are taken for granted a little bit, and so I think this is a good reminder of how important it is that we have a head of state, that we respect him, and that if he comes all the way here to deliver our speech from the throne, that's historical on its own. So I think it's exciting, and I wanted to be a part of history, and I think it's helpful to get the people mobilized as well, and to appreciate our country again, and remind ourselves of how wonderful a place it is. So.
Wayne, let me ask you a couple questions. You know, this pomp and ceremony is for the people. Are you feeling patriotic?
I feel patriotic, and it's a long history.
Oh, they're coming. Wait. Okay, here it goes. All right. That was a moment in which these people will always remember, as the king and queen drove by in their landau, accompanied by the 21 horses of the RCMP. This crowd said, "This is my king. There goes my king." So this is important to point out, because this is King Charles coming to Canada on the invitation of Prime Minister Mark Carney to basically shore up support for a Canadian sovereignty. This is the King of Canada on the invite of the Prime Minister. And I should also point out to you that there are dual American Canadian citizens here. There are people from across various cultures, exemplifying the Canadian mosaic that makes this country what it is. Vashi and Omar, Prime Minister Carney has said there are three pillars of sovereignty which sets Canada apart from the U.S. The most distinct, perhaps most obvious, is the fact that we are a constitutional monarchy, but also it has to do with our Indigenous relations, this country's history with the First Nations, with the Métis and with the Inuit, as well as our acknowledgement of Quebec. And this is a moment in which those three pillars of Canadian sovereignty come together in history. Vashi and Omar.
It's also a moment, Omar, where it's actually happening. They're not delayed. We were told they were 15 minutes delayed. They've left. They've made up some great time. They're making their way along the route from the Bank of Canada to the Senate, where the King will deliver the speech. There they are. This is our first glimpse now of the King and Queen. Let's listen in as they make their way through the crowd. And there's the scene outside the Senate. That is the building that houses the Senate, where King Charles and Queen Camilla are now making their way in that very historic landau along the route along Wellington Street to that building. Our Abigail Beeman is also in the middle of all that action. Abigail, I'll throw things over to you.
Hi. Well, as you mentioned, the King and Queen just pulled up in that landau behind me. Also in that carriage is the Governor General and her party. The crowd here is a funny mix of getting extremely exciting and then going silent, just wanting to take everything in. You can hear them now cheering behind me. Moments before the Mounties on horses arrived, the Prime Minister arrived. That was an exciting moment for the crowd here. The Prime Minister was standing on the dais there as "O Canada" was played. He had sort of a... We're just going to listen into the crowd here.
Okay, so we got to sit here and listen to them play the national anthem again. They had Carney here just like 10 minutes ago. They played the anthem. Now they're playing it for him. Let me see what the Senate is. The Senate stream on yet? Yeah, so this is everybody coming into the Senate chamber that is allowed. I think there's not all the MPs are allowed to come in here. It's mostly just like senators, and obviously I can see in the middle there's some First Nations people. What's with the pointy hats? I don't remember those. But these ones? Not the cowboy hats, the other hats? Okay, so wait, he's walking by just to kind of show respect. I don't know. I don't know where these pointy hats are from. Can somebody tell me why these guys have pointy hats on? I've never seen these. Oh, okay. That's what's making all the noise. Senate's still waiting for him to just walk in the door. Then we'll switch to that feed. This is a little over the top. Oh, inspection of the guard, yeah.
That completes the 21 gun salute, I think. I think that was
I think
21,
we heard it.
yeah. And the inspection of the Guard of Honor, 100% Guard of Honor from the 3rd Battalion of the Royal Canadian Regiment. You can see King Charles on a couple of instances there stop for a moment to speak to the members of the Guard of Honor that he was, the term is formally inspecting. And now he will make his way eventually, after the full inspection is complete, into the Senate, which is where he'll deliver the speech.
And His Majesty, of course, wearing a customary medal array and an Order of Canada around his neck as he continues to
meet with some members of the band, trying to make out if we can hear what he's saying,
yeah,
but it's
I'm
hard.
listening too. So many times with these royal visits, they actually cut the boom mic so you can't hear what the royals are saying. But I'm also trying to listen to see what.
Okay, let's get to it. Make your way in there.
And I think I hear people in the crowd chanting "God Save the King," if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right, yeah. Quite a sizable crowd has definitely gathered through the course of the morning, watching the king make his way.
There he goes. Now he's in there, so we'll switch feeds. I think somebody said 1.5 mil Savage. I think the cost is 1.5 mil. But he doesn't look super like he's having health issues and stuff, and his cancer is really bad. I was gonna say he doesn't look overly healthy. It's still a lot. Yeah, for 24 hours, I guess, yeah. That's quite a bit. But if they say 1.5 mil, double it, it's probably 3 mil. So you're probably right. You know, it's another thing that I was looking up the House of Commons schedule today, and they don't have their projected order of business, because I'm not sure if they're going to do question period today or if the first one's going to be tomorrow. All right, let's see what. Okay, still just making his way in there.
King Charles, Queen Camilla. I think it's the Governor General and her husband, Wick Fraser, just
right.
behind him, making their way inside now, greeted by another rousing rendition of O Canada as the King stood to kind of present himself to the crowd, adorned like the Prime Minister in the medal of the Order of Canada around his neck.
He has now made his way through the doors.
Wednesday. Are you 100% sure on that?
The Senate chamber. And we're just trying to make out who he's greeting and shaking hands with right now. CTV's Abigail Beeman is across the street. This is the Chief of the Defense Staff coming up here, Jenny Carignan. CTV's Abigail Beeman is standing by. Just walk us through that moment in history, Abigail, that we just all saw and witnessed together.
That was a really good way to put it, a moment in history. And I think I'll reference again how the crowd reacted. How the crowd reacted when both the Prime Minister and the King arrived. So we saw the King and Queen, as well as the Governor General and her spouse, arrive in that open carriage and get out. There were two O Canadas played first when the Prime Minister arrived. I'm not sure if you want to listen again. Yeah, I'll throw it back to you, Vashi and Omar.
Yeah, we're going to thanks, Abigail. We'll take a listen in because the River Dance drummers are about to perform inside the foyer of the Senate for King Charles.
Okay, I was going to say, they look like they're about to perform something. This is such an odd mixture. Like colonizers and land that was colonized and taken. This is like a weird contrast here.
Enjoy your visit. Hey, you're welcome. Thanks for coming. Hey. Hey, how you doing there? Good to see you.
Okay, there we go. Now we can switch feeds. No?
King is set to deliver the speech from the throne. It's probably a good place to point out that there are a number of Indigenous leaders that the King met with yesterday, many of whom have conveyed to us they are hoping that there is significant reference in this throne speech to the treaty relationship between Crown and Indigenous people, the Crown rather, and Indigenous people in this country. I do expect there will be some of that in the speech, but it's also a key part of what you have seen so far in the ceremony that's leading up to the speech. Lots of Indigenous participation through, for example, what we just witnessed with the river dance drummers. There will be more after the ceremony as well. And then, of course, the Governor General herself, the first Indigenous person to hold the title of Governor General in our history. And
acknowledging that colonial legacy, a part of this country's journey of reconciliation. We were wondering who some of those members of the entrance party were, Vashi, when the royal couple arrived inside the Senate together with the Governor General and her husband, Whit Fraser. And we know that the Speaker of the Senate was there, the spouse of the Speaker of the Senate, the Chief of the Defense Staff, as we mentioned, Jenny Carignan, and the Commissioner of the RCMP, Commissioner Michael Duet. Let's get to CTV's royal commentator, Afia Hagan, who joins us now from London. And as we get ready for this throne speech to get underway, Afia, in about a half an hour's time, you mentioned the last time we chatted about this concept of soft diplomacy, the fact that the king and his role is not an inherently political role, it's an apolitical role. But we have seen examples from him, as we're seeing now, and also with the Queen, of them exerting their power and their influence in certain cases historically. Can you talk a little bit about that and the significance of that part of their role?
Yes, absolutely. You know, the king is supposed to, or the monarch rather, is supposed to remain apolitical at all times. Queen Elizabeth II, you know, managed to do that pretty much through her time as the monarch. But when it came to apartheid, particularly, something that she felt that she had to sort of exert the power of soft diplomacy, and that, you know, when it came to places that she would visit, when it came to people that she would speak to, you know, it was all about subtly as you can, you know, place her support for the South African Indigenous people against apartheid at that time, whilst also not really saying anything at all. It's a very difficult sort of tightrope that you have to toe, where you are the head of state, where you are supposed to set yourself apart from the political fray. But Queen Elizabeth II was a vocal opponent of apartheid in South Africa. You know, it was something that she felt she had to do. She refused to visit the country at the time of racial segregation. She just said that she wasn't going to go there. And that was her way of flexing that power of soft diplomacy, of letting that play out. This is something that we are seeing similarly here with King Charles III. It's not necessarily not visiting a country, but for him, you know, as a sovereign and as the monarch of Canada and of the United Kingdom, those are the countries that he has to have their back, essentially, for want of putting it a better way, in the face of an aggressor, whoever that aggressor may be. We've also seen him on the world stage with President Zelensky. You know, he's shown his support for Ukraine over the duration of the war the past 3 years, whether that's, you know, wearing a yellow tie or having a Ukrainian flag or having colors of flowers in the colors of the Ukrainian flag at events he's been at. It's these kind of subtle ways that he has shown his political leaning, perhaps where he stands on things, and flexing that power of soft diplomacy. But you've got to think to yourself, it comes to a point where your head of state, your monarch, can't afford to stay out of the fray. And I think that's where we are now, is that King Charles III knows that as the head of state of Canada, he has to perhaps show us his political leanings, show us that he has Canada's back. He has to do that because he is the head of state. And so that's why I said earlier, he's as apolitical as he can afford to be, but he also can't afford to be completely ignorant. He can't afford to sit back on his laurels and let the geopolitical situation play out in the way that it is. He has to get involved. He has to be in the fray, and that's what we're seeing here.
So a chance for the monarchy to prove or show its own relevance in the context of this time. Is there any opportunity for King Charles to be the so-called Trump whisperer? I mean, it appears publicly that Donald Trump is somebody who respects the king.
Donald Trump is someone who loves the idea of the British royal family. He's a huge fan of Queen Elizabeth II. He's a huge fan of King Charles III. Remember, Melania Trump and King Charles III are pen pals. Love to know what they've been chatting about recently. But absolutely, King Charles III and Prince William, both are the Trump whisperers. They absolutely have his ear. And he is, someone that they can influence. Donald Trump absolutely respects the king, respects Prince William. And so we'll listen to what they have to say. The Trump administration, along with Donald Trump himself, will be watching what's happening today very, very closely. I'm sure they're watching our coverage,
I don't
actually.
think so.
And they will want to know how this...
I don't think Donald Trump is going to be watching this.
In his speech. So yes, they can be the Trump whisperers, absolutely. They can be the ones to sort of talk him down, to offer him something else. We've heard whispers of perhaps the United States being an associate member of the Commonwealth, and Donald Trump, loved that idea. He, on his Truth Social, his platform said, that sounds good to me. So maybe that's something that can be leveled in exchange for the Americans backing down on this ludicrous idea of Canada being the 51st state. Let's not forget we have that second state visit coming up as well. Unprecedented. Many presidents have ever had a second state visit. And that state visit's not just going to be about Buckingham Palace and pomp and pageantry. It's about Balmoral. Balmoral is the inner circle. For Donald Trump to feel like he's in the inner circle with King Charles III, that's worth more than its weight in gold. And that's the power of soft diplomacy that can change things.
All right, Ify, I know you're standing by. This is a live look from inside the Senate chamber. And the two thrones that you just saw there a couple of seconds ago, that's the first time that those thrones will be used by a reigning monarch, by King Charles and the Queen, in about a half an hour's time when that throne speech gets underway.
So MPs aren't allowed in here.
It's made out of Canadian walnut, and also has a piece, by the way, from a forest just behind Windsor Castle. That's a piece of wood that the British royal family donated to Canada, and so there is that part of the links to the monarchy that are reflected in the two thrones that you're seeing there right now.
Can also see, this is our first glimpse inside the room of who has actually assembled, because we know beyond senators, and we can see a number of them in their seats, there are a variety of dignitaries. So on the left hand of your screen, I can see kind of out of the corner of my eye, former governors general. I saw both Governor General David Johnston, as well as Governor General Adrienne Clarkson. Behind them, a number of Indigenous leaders. I believe I saw Natin Obed among them. I know there are former prime ministers here, for example, Stephen Harper and Justin Trudeau. Been a long time since they've all been in the same room. I think I might see some of them to the
They're sitting beside each other on the right side. Justin Trudeau and Stephen Harper are right there on the right side.
I think I just saw that on the right-hand screen before the camera panned up. So we'll keep our eye on who else we can see assemble. But this also reflects like the uniqueness of the moment. I can't remember the last time a variety of governors general, but also former prime ministers were together to witness the delivery of the throne
And I
speech.
think just opposite the thrones, we saw the justices of the Supreme Court of Canada seated there as well.
Yeah, I think they're actually supposed to meet in person with the king as well at some point, maybe even prior to the start of the speech at some moment. In the initial itinerary, at least, they had laid that out. The Supreme Court justices, that is.
So again, the speech from the throne expected to get underway in about a half an hour's time. We were hearing that things were running a little bit late. Again, they seem to have picked up time. But it seems like things are back on schedule now, expected to start at about 11 o'clock. And then at that point, it should last about 15 or 20 minutes. And, you know, just going back to Scott Reed was telling you, Vashi, that the language in this throne speech is going to be particularly significant given the line that the king has to walk here. Obviously,
I hate when the media keeps reporting this. They're like, "Oh, Carney summoned him because of what's going on with Trump, and he's got a fine line to walk." He's not going to say, King's not going to say anything about Trump. He's not here because of Trump or anything like that. He's here because he has to initiate the parliament. That's what the monarchy's always done. It's not like he's coming specifically because of anything. And he's not, I swear, he's not going to mention the USA. He's not going to mention Trump. He's just going to, it's going to be a quick, boring 10, 15-minute speech. That's just my opinion.
See if that came via the king. So very interested to see the way in which they're able to weave that together. You're looking just inside the Senate chamber where that throne speech, as Omar mentioned, will be delivered in about half an hour's time. A number of senators have assembled. MPs will also join them after they are essentially gathered from the House of Commons and brought over. Our royal commentator Richard Berthelsen is following along with us as this all unfolds. Richard, I wanted to get your take on the crowds and the reception for the king so far, because just sitting, half a block away from it, it's been pretty cool to witness. What has been going through your head as you see the really quite...
Okay, So this is the house right now. So what, they come and knock on the door, right? And tell them that it's time to make their way over? And then they kind of stand outside? Like, what's the point in that if they can't go inside and they just walk over and stand outside the Senate? And, it's a pretty empty house today. And do they come back and do anything? Because from what I can see on the House of Commons website, there's no projected order of business. They should be starting to get to committees and forming committees and selecting members. I believe it has to go through the clerk, but, I mean, there's business to be done here. So I think they're just waiting to get called over and then they walk and stand outside, right?
That as soon as he entered the building there, the temporary headquarters of the Senate, he was greeted by drummers, a drum circle. And what was striking to me is right under the portrait of Queen Victoria. And when you think so many treaties in this country were signed in the name of and on behalf of Queen Victoria in her very, very long reign, obviously things that we're dealing with the consequences of today, I thought the symbolism of that with the monarch, the current monarch, the one whose name the treaties were done, and the First Nations right below it was very striking. And I think it again really speaks to our history and who we are as a people and some of the issues we're dealing with. I see now the procession has formally started into the Senate.
Yes, we've got another glimpse of the King and Queen, the Governor General. I believe the Prime Minister is also, and his wife alongside them. This is sort of the procession that will move the King and Queen into the chamber, where the King will ultimately deliver that speech. There's still a bunch of stuff that has to happen in the interim. As far as the speech goes, as we kind of set the table for what to expect, Richard, lots of back and forth about how far essentially he would go when it comes to the threat that we face as a country from the United States and from, in particular, this president of the United States. What are your
expectations? Okay, so they don't get to sit in the chamber, but the MPs are sitting up top, like in the gallery.
And a very, subtle reminder of some of those things. I think it will obviously address the challenges we're having. It's not going to address them directly head on. It's not that kind of occasion. And of course, he'll do so in a way that befits his role and what the Canadian government wants him to say.
Yeah, but McSee, the House is actually scheduled for today. So that's what I'm saying. They don't have a projected order of business. Every single day they show on their website what the business is for today and tomorrow. And they don't have today's business or tomorrow's business even on their website yet. I mean, you'd like to think if we've done this how many times now, we'd know what the first couple days are going to be like, but the House doesn't even have that information on its website. Wonder if I can switch over to the Senate. Yeah, okay, we'll watch this one. Sorry, I just have to mute the music because I'm pretty sure it's copyrighted, which is so odd, but...
Pray be seated. Veuillez vous asseoir.
Usher of the Black Rod, you will proceed to the House of Commons and acquaint the House that it is the pleasure of His Majesty the King that they attend him immediately in the Senate chamber.
Usher of the Black Rod, you will proceed to the House of Commons and acquaint that House that it is the pleasure of His Majesty the King that they attend him immediately in the Senate chamber.
So yeah, he just goes over to the House of Commons and bangs on the door. And what these people in the House, these MPs in the House, on this feed, they're about to just, walk over and stand in the gallery? Because they can't sit in here, so they'll just stand up there in the gallery? Or do they just try and get a look from outside, because the gallery looks pretty full? Like, I don't... So yeah, they don't even have anywhere to stand. This is like, there's like at least 30, 40 people here. Where the heck are they going to sit or stand? They're going to stand up in the gallery, which is full, or just stand outside? I don't get that. Like, oh, I don't know. This just feels a bit old school. Like, I get it. It's traditional, and it's, you know, this is how Parliament has worked. But these people could be doing work right now, man. Everybody's just sitting around right now. There's a lot of sitting around going on. Didn't Blanchet say that the BQ wasn't going to attend this? I don't think it was. I don't think they would. The Bloc does not like the monarchy. So, understandably so. They lost. It's boring. I know. That's why I'm wondering. I don't know why they can't come back and do work. Like, why can't, like, please tell me the House doesn't adjourn after they go over to listen to him talk for 15 minutes. Do you think the monarchy is useless? No, I don't think. Did Blanchet say he would be backing the Liberals? No. Blanchet said he would take each line item by line item, but he didn't say he would like immediately form a coalition. I think the NDP is probably more likely to form a coalition. And on the fact, like on the question, do I think the monarchy is useless? I think it has a purpose in the UK. Like a lot of the English people like the monarchy. I understand where it comes from in Canada, and I understand that legally, like the legal proceedings, if we didn't want to be a part of, you know, a Commonwealth country, all of the Crown land in Canada goes back to the King. That, like, we would have to cede the land back to them, or we would have to get the King to give us the land. There would probably be a financial transaction there. So, I mean, we pay them every year. What's it, like 136 mil or 236 mil? It's a couple $100 million, I think. We pay them every year for the Crown land to, like, lease or own the Crown land in Canada. I think there could be something done about that, because I would like to see us not constantly giving money back to the monarch every year for land that technically is Canadian. It should stay Canadian. But I don't like hate the monarch or anything. I think it's an old prestigious, institution, and it makes sense for in England. But I think in Canada, just based on our system that we're a Commonwealth, that that's just how it is. That's just the tradition of it. There's nothing that we can really do to kind of change it unless we bought out our Crown land. I think that's how that would work legally. Switch over to the Senate view. So yeah, see, everyone's just standing around here too. Now everyone's just waiting. Flip back over to the House. They're all just waiting. We're all just waiting for this one guy to walk over, knock on the door, and wait. Now we got to wait for these guys to then walk over to the Senate building. A lot of people standing around. Oddly enough, there is a few Bloc members, though, in the House. Like, she's a Bloc MP. So I wonder if she's just going to go do something else. Like, I don't think she would attend the throne speech. She seems to be, from what I can tell, she's the only Bloc MP in the House right now. Do I think we need an election before 4 years from now? I don't know. I don't want to see an election within, like, a year, because it does cost Canada a lot of money to administer a federal election. It's something like $700 or $800 million it costs us to actually, like, administer an election. So I don't want to see us spending almost $2 billion in 1 year just for an election. Like, I think people voted the way they voted. Unfortunately, conservatives didn't, form government, but that's the way democracy works. People get to vote in idiots sometimes, and kind of is what it is. So just for the sake of finances, I'd prefer we don't blow a bunch of money on an election this year at least, maybe next year or the year after. But I mean, we've had a lot of elections since like 2019. We've had more than usual, so it's costing us a lot of money. Election Canada didn't administer anything. I know. I mean, there's a lot of debate on certain ridings and, people not getting mail-in ballots correctly or whatever. I don't know. I don't think any election's ever been perfect, though. I think Elections Canada probably makes mistakes every single election. What do I do besides this for a living? Like, you mean to make money? This is what I do. I do this channel full time. But we usually focus on parliamentary streams. So, committees, question period, things like that. While we get the ball rolling, I figured I'd watch this. Which most people probably don't even care about. Like, I don't think many people care to watch this. But
a message from His Majesty, the King of Canada. Un message de Sa Majesté, le Roi du Canada. A message from His Majesty, the King of Canada. Un message de Sa Majesté, le Roi du Canada.
Sorry, we got to hear that twice there.
Speaker, a message from His Majesty the King. Monsieur le Président, un message de Sa Majesté le Roi.
Admit the messenger. Faites entrer le messager.
See, and for me, it's things like this that, like, why do we need this big, giant golden mace? Again, I know it's tradition, but, like, how much is that thing costing us? How much is that thing worth? Fast forward the Parliament stream. I think it fell behind. No, this is live right now. I'm checking it. I can see it. It's live.
Mr. Speaker, it is the pleasure of His Majesty, the King of Canada, that this honourable House attend him immediately in the chamber of the Senate. Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, it is the pleasure of His Majesty, the King of Canada, that this honourable House attend the Senate chamber immediately.
Okay, I wonder if these two come. Those are two Bloc MPs. Obviously, I don't think they're going to be there. Oh, there's three. There's three Bloc MPs. Where are these people? Like, where are you going to stand? The gallery's full. The inside they're not allowed to sit in. So, this is a lot of people. I don't have the audio muted. That's just the Senate stream. They have the audio muted right now. There's more space in a Mandarin. That's funny. There's Justin Trudeau up in the corner. Oh, man. I was hoping I would never have to see him again. I wouldn't mind listening to what him and Harper are talking about, though. They seem like they're having a friendly conversation. Where are the protesters? Outside. Apparently there was people waving American flags. Also, for some reason, when I see this robe, this reminds me of Santa Claus. Like that. This is a long process, man. Just to hear one guy speak. We've got all these people together. We're all sitting around waiting for half an hour. It's like little much. It is a 9-minute walk from the House of Commons to the Senate. Okay, good to know. This is like watching paint dry. I know. They legit have to walk all over to get all the way over there, then get into place. It is too much. I mean, I don't get it why they don't come back to the House and then reconvene. Like, does the House actually adjourn after the speech? Because that would make no sense to me. They have a full day of work they can do after this. But if you look on the House of Commons website, it doesn't say that they have any projected order of business for the day. This is the only order of business they have to attend to. This doesn't even work. They're not even doing anything. They were sitting around in the House for an hour until someone came and knocked on the door and said, all right, let's go for a 10-minute walk. Like, we got Skype, or Skype's not a thing anymore, but we got like video calls, you know? Could have just sent over a phone call or a video and gone a 10-minute thing. We would do all this. I get it's tradition, I get it, but man, this is over the top. The House is busy planning for the summer. Yeah, 4 weeks before they only have to sit for this week and 3 more, so 4 weeks in total before they get the summer off. Which Conservatives said they'd be happy to extend the sitting periods and work over the summer. Conservatives always try to call committees over the summer too, and Liberals always complain about working in the summer. Remember Matthew Green? I don't even think he didn't get reelected, but that guy would just go from committee to committee to committee and try and get the NDP and the Liberals together to try and adjourn every single committee. I'm so glad that guy didn't get reelected. Did Don Stewart? No, he didn't. He didn't win his riding. Toronto St. Paul's went Liberal, I believe, right? Oh, this seat is vacant. There's no member for that constituency. Why is there no member for that constituency? Yeah, it says Don Stewart's no longer a member of Parliament. But on the website it doesn't show. It says this constituency is vacant. Why is the seat vacant? I thought Leslie Church won it. I thought Toronto St. Paul's went Liberal again. I thought it was Leslie Church that won that riding. It says on the website, though, it says that seat's vacant, so I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I sure hope Kalida's gone. No, she got reelected. It says Leslie Church is still in. Yeah, but on the House of Commons website, it says the seat is vacant. So I'm confused. And they sure are taking their time walking that 9 minutes. Did they decide to go for a gander around the whole block? I think it's been more than 9 minutes. Maybe it's being updated? No, all the other constituencies on the House of Commons website show who's the member of Parliament for that riding. So, I don't know. Maybe it is getting updated, but they're usually pretty quick on that. Oh, Lord. Oh, finally, here we go. I was about to miss a birthday. Where are they going to sit? Where are those MPs going to sit? They're just going to pile in there like that.
May it please your majesty. The House of Commons has elected me their speaker, though I am but little able to fulfill the important duties thus assigned to me. If in the performance of those duties I should at any time fall into error, I pray that the fault may be imputed to me and not to the House of Commons, whose servant I am, and who, through me, the better to enable them to discharge their duty to their king and country, humbly claim all their undoubted rights and privileges, especially that they may have freedom of speech in their debates, access to your majesty's person at all seasonable times, and that their proceedings may receive from your majesty the most favorable construction.
May it please your majesty. The House of Commons has elected me their speaker, though I am but little able to fulfill the important duties thus assigned to me. If, in the performance of those duties, I should at any time fall into error, I pray that the fault may be imputed to me and not to the Commons, whose servant I am, and who, through me, the better to enable them to discharge their duty to their king and country, humbly claim all their undoubted rights and privileges, especially that they may have freedom of speech in their debates, access to your Majesty's person at all seasonable times, and that their proceedings may receive from your Majesty the most favorable construction.
Mr. Speaker, I am commanded by His Majesty the King to declare to you that he freely confides in the duty and attachment of the House of Commons to His Majesty's person and government, and not doubting that their proceedings will be conducted with wisdom, temper, and prudence, he grants and upon all occasions will recognize and allow their constitutional privileges. I am commanded also to assure you that the Commons shall have ready access to His Majesty upon all seasonable occasions, and that their proceedings, as well as your words and actions, will constantly receive from him the most favorable construction.
Mr. Speaker, I am commanded by His Majesty the King to declare to you that he freely confides in the duty and attachment of the House of Commons to His Majesty's person and government, and not doubting that their proceedings will be conducted with wisdom, temper, and prudence, he grants, and upon all occasions will recognize and allow their constitutional privileges. I am commanded also to assure you that the Commons shall have ready access to His Majesty upon all seasonable occasions, and that their proceedings, as well as your words and actions, will constantly receive from him the most favorable construction.
Honourable Senators, members of the House of Commons, it is with a deep sense of pride and pleasure that my wife and I join you here today as we witness Canadians coming together in a renewed sense of national pride, unity and hope. I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered on the unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. This land acknowledgement is a recognition of shared history as a nation, while continuing to deepen my own understanding. It is my great hope that in each of your communities and collectively as a country, a path is found toward truth and reconciliation in both word and deed. This is my 20th visit to Canada, spread over the course of more than half a century, and my first as sovereign. As I've said before, every time I come to Canada, a little more of Canada seeps into my bloodstream, and from there straight to my heart. I've always had the greatest admiration for Canada's unique identity, which is recognized across the world for bravery and sacrifice in defense of national values and for the diversity and kindness of Canadians. To the First Nations, Inuit and Métis peoples, you have welcomed my family and myself to your traditional lands with great warmth and hospitality, for which I am humbly grateful. This year, we mark the 80th anniversary of VE Day and VJ Day. On Juno Beach, at Dieppe, on the Somme, at Beaumont-Hamel, at Ypres and on Vimy Ridge. At those places and many others, forever etched into our memories, Canadians fought and died alongside our closest allies. Aujourd'hui,
today, I see representatives from every part of Canada, from St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador, to Victoria, British Columbia, and Arviat in Nunavut. I see the guardians of the fundamental rights and freedoms guaranteed in the Canadian Charter. And as King, I thank you for your service to your fellow Canadians across the length and breadth of this vast and great nation.
You speak for your communities, representing an incredible richness of cultures, languages, and perspectives. We owe it to this generation and those who succeed us to think and act for the greater good of all. While the world faces unprecedented challenges, generating uncertainties across the continents with regards to peace and stability, economics and climate change, your communities have the skills and determination to bring a wealth of solutions. En encourageant la collaboration,
by fostering collaboration and engaging in respectful, constructive debates, you will ensure this government is capable of bold and fair action to support Canadians.
It has been nearly 70 years since the Sovereign first opened Parliament. In the time since, Canada has dramatically changed, repatriating its constitution, achieving full independence, and witnessing immense growth. Canada has embraced its British, French, and Indigenous roots and become a bold, ambitious, innovative country that is bilingual, truly multicultural, and committed to reconciliation. The Crown has for so long been a symbol of unity for Canada. It also represents stability and continuity from the past to the present. As it should, it stands proudly as a symbol of Canada today, in all her richness and dynamism. When my dear late mother, Queen Elizabeth II, opened a new Canadian Parliament in 1957, the Second World War remained a fresh, painful memory. The Cold War was intensifying. Freedom and democracy were under threat. Canada was emerging as a growing economic power and a force for peace in the world. In the decades since, history has been punctuated by epoch-making events: the Vietnam War, the fall of the Berlin Wall, and the start of the War on Terror. Today, Canada faces another critical moment. Democracy, pluralism, the rule of law, self-determination, and freedom are values which Canadians hold dear, and ones which the government is determined to protect. The system of open global trade that, while not perfect, has helped to deliver prosperity for Canadians for decades, is changing. Canada's relationships with partners are also changing.
We must be clear-eyed. The world is more dangerous and uncertain place than at any point since the Second World War. Canada is facing challenges that are unprecedented in our lifetimes.
Many Canadians are feeling anxious and worried about the drastically changing world around them. Fundamental change is always unsettling. Yet this moment is also an incredible opportunity, an opportunity for renewal, an opportunity to think big and to act bigger, an opportunity for Canada to embark on the largest transformation of its economy since the Second World War. A confident Canada, which has welcomed new Canadians, including from some of the most tragic global conflict zones, can seize this opportunity by recognizing that all Canadians can give themselves far more than any foreign power on any continent can ever take away. And that by staying true to Canadian values, Canada can build new alliances and a new economy that serves all Canadians. The Prime Minister and the President of the United States, for example, have begun defining a new economic and security relationship between Canada and the United States, rooted in mutual respect and founded on common interests, to deliver transformational benefits for both sovereign nations. Simultanément,
in parallel, the government is working to strengthen its relationships with reliable trading partners and allies around the world, recognizing that Canada has what the world needs and the values the world respects. Canada is ready to build a coalition of like-minded countries that share its values, that believe in international cooperation and the free and open exchange of goods, services, and ideas. In this new, fast-evolving world, Canada is ready to lead. This will be demonstrated in June, when Canada convenes the G7 summit.
The government is guided by its conviction that the economy is only truly strong when it serves everyone. Many Canadians are struggling to get ahead. The government is responding, reducing middle-class taxes and saving two-income families up to $840 a year. It will cut the GST on homes at or under $1 million for first-time home buyers, delivering savings of up to $50,000. And it will lower the GST on homes between $1 million and $1.5 million. Le gouvernement.
The government will protect the programs that are already saving families thousands of dollars every year. These include childcare and pharmacare. In addition to these, the government has recently expanded the Canadian Dental Care Plan to cover about 8 million Canadians, saving the average person more than $800 annually.
The government's overarching goal, its core mission, is to build the strongest economy in the G7. That starts with creating one Canadian economy out of 13. Internal barriers to trade and labour mobility cost Canada as much as $200 billion each year. The government will introduce legislation to remove all remaining federal barriers to internal trade and labour mobility by Canada Day.
numerous premiers have already taken vital steps to break down provincial and territorial barriers to trade. Together, we will build on that progress to deliver free trade across the nation. This is critical to unlocking Canada's full economic potential, but it's not enough.
To build Canada strong, the government is working closely with provinces, territories, and Indigenous peoples to identify and catalyse projects of national significance. Projects that will connect Canada, that will deepen Canada's ties with the world, and that will create high-paying jobs for generations. Given the pace of change and the scale of opportunities, speed is of the essence. Through the creation of a new major federal project office, the time needed to approve a project will be reduced from 5 years to 2, all while upholding Canada's world-leading environmental standards and its constitutional obligations to Indigenous peoples. The government will also strike cooperation agreements with every interested province and territory within 6 months to realise its goal of one project, one review. When Canadians come together, Canada builds things that last. Éliminer ces obstacles qui freinent.
By removing these barriers that have held back our economy, we will unleash a new era of growth that will ensure we don't just survive ongoing trade wars, but emerge from them stronger than ever. It will enable Canada to become the world's leading energy superpower in both clean and conventional energy, to build an industrial strategy that will make Canada more globally competitive while fighting climate change, to build hundreds of thousands of good careers in the skilled trades, and to build Canada into the world's leading hub for science and innovation.
Critically, the government will undertake a series of measures to help double the rate of home building while creating an entirely new housing industry, using Canadian technology, Canadian skilled workers, and Canadian lumber. The government will introduce measures to deliver affordable homes by creating Build Canada Homes. This mission-driven organisation will act to accelerate the development of new affordable housing. It will invest in the growth of the prefabricated and modular housing industry, and it will provide significant financing to affordable home builders. The government will make the housing market work better, including by cutting municipal development charges in half for all multi-unit housing. The government will drive supply up to bring housing costs down. To be truly strong, Canada must be secure. To that end, the government will introduce legislation to enhance security at Canada's borders. Law enforcement and intelligence agencies will have new tools to stop the flow of fentanyl and its precursors. The Canada Border Services Agency will be given new powers to examine goods destined for export to prevent the transport of illegal and stolen products, including cars. Le gouvernement protégera.
The government will protect Canada's sovereignty by rebuilding, rearming, and reinvesting in the Canadian Armed Forces. It will boost Canada's defense industry by joining Rearm Europe to invest in transatlantic security with Canada's European partners. And it will invest to strengthen its presence in the north, as this region, which is an integral part of Canada, faces new threats.
To protect Canadians and their sovereign rights from wherever challenges may come at home or abroad. To keep communities safe, the government will hire 1,000 more RCMP personnel. It will change firearms licensing and strengthen enforcement of yellow and red flag laws. Weapons licenses for those convicted of intimate partner violence and those subject to protection orders will be revoked. Through the deployment of scanners, drones, and helicopters, additional personnel, and canine teams, the government will stem the tide of illegal guns and drugs across the border. It will take these steps while protecting the rights of law-abiding gun owners and Indigenous peoples' long-standing hunting traditions. The government will bring a renewed focus on car theft and home invasions by toughening the criminal code to make bail harder to get for repeat offenders charged with committing these crimes, along with human trafficking and drug smuggling. During this time of great change, Canadians are uniting behind what makes Canada unique. La langue française et la culture.
The French language and the Quebec culture are at the heart of the Canadian identity. They define the country that Canadians and I love so much. Canada is a country that respects and celebrates its official languages and Indigenous languages. The government is determined to protect the institutions that bring these cultures and this identity to the world, such as CBC, Radio-Canada. It will protect the people who give us access to fresh, healthy, and quality food, agricultural producers. And it will protect supply management.
Nature is core to Canada's identity. In 2022, Canada convened COP15 in Montreal, which concluded with 196 countries striking a historic agreement to protect 30% of their lands and 30% of waters by 2030. To this end, the government will protect more of Canada's nature than ever before through the creation of new national parks, national urban parks, marine protected areas, and other conservation initiatives. The government will always protect the rights and freedoms that the Charter guarantees for every Canadian. The government will be a reliable partner to Indigenous peoples, upholding its fundamental commitment to advancing reconciliation. Central to this commitment is the creation of long-term wealth and prosperity with Indigenous peoples. For that reason, the government will double the Indigenous Loan Guarantee Program from $5 billion to $10 billion, enabling more Indigenous communities to become owners of major projects. As Canada moves forward with nation-building projects, the government will always be firmly guided by the principle of free, prior, and informed consent. Canada's immigration system has long been a source of pride for Canadians and of dynamism for the economy. The government is dedicated to rebuilding the trust of Canadians in immigration by restoring balance to the system. Le gouvernement instaurera.
The government will cap the total number of temporary foreign workers and international students to less than 5% of Canada's population by 2027. By doing this, the government will attract the best talent in the world to build our economy, while sending a clear message to Canadians working abroad that there is no better time to come home.
Dans toutes ses actions, le gouvernement.
In all its actions, the government will be guided by a new fiscal discipline. Spend less so Canadians can invest more.
Day-to-day government spending, the government's operating budget, has been growing by 9% every year. The government will introduce measures to bring it below 2%. Transfers to provinces, territories, or individuals will be maintained. The government will balance its operating budget over the next 3 years by cutting waste, capping the public service, ending duplication, and deploying technology to improve public sector productivity. In parallel, the government will take a series of measures to catalyze new investment, to create better jobs and higher incomes for Canadians. The scale of the government's initiative will match the challenges of our times and the ambitions of Canadians. Honourable Senators, members of the House of Commons, when my dear late mother addressed your predecessors 7 decades ago, she said that in that age and against the backdrop of international affairs, no nation could live unto itself. It is a source of great pride that in the following decades, Canada has continued to set an example to the world in her conduct and values as a force for good. À vous.
I wish to express to you and to the people of Canada my heartfelt gratitude, and that of my wife, for the warmth of the welcome which we have received.
And reminds us the true North is indeed strong and free. Members of the House of Commons, you will be asked to appropriate the funds to carry out the services and expenditures authorised by Parliament. May you honour the profound trust bestowed upon you by Canadians. And may God bless and guide you in all your duties.
Man, I didn't appreciate the Carney talking points. I could have left those out of the picture. This whole thing about the budget's going to balance itself. It's going to go back to normal spending. We're not going to overspend. We're going to build twice as many homes. Like, come on, man. We could have been fine without all that crap. Because we know that's not going to happen. That's one interesting thing he didn't say. He didn't say, I commence the start of Parliament. Wasn't he supposed to say that? I think he needs to nod a few more times. Okay, so now they can go back to Parliament and actually do some work. Get committees going. Get the clerk to start organizing chairs for the committees. Well, those get voted on in committees, but members for the committees. If they just go back to the House and adjourn, like, that is... What was the speech for then if you're going to start Parliament and then they're going to go back and adjourn? Rest of the day off, I know. It's like, would they work like an hour? They had to walk over from the other building, come here and stand in the back to listen to this, and then they go back to the House. So what, they maybe worked an hour and a half? I don't even know if you call that work, but yep. The speech was not for that. What do you mean the speech was not for that? They told us that, but that's not the real reason. What reason are you talking about? Will there be question period after this? I don't think so. I think the House goes back and adjourns. But they're supposed to have their projected order of business for the day on their website, and they don't have it. They haven't even put what they're doing today. All that's on the House agenda today is the throne speech. So, by definition, that means that they're done work for the day now. They just go back and adjourn. But we'll flip over to the Parliament live stream in a second here, because right now it's in recess. And we'll see what they do. But I wouldn't be surprised if they go back and just adjourn, because I don't think they're doing question period or anything today. I think that's tomorrow. Are there any crowds outside for the king? Yes. There's people standing like all around the block to get a glimpse of the king walking in and out. I don't know how many people, but okay, so what? There's a 10-minute walk from the Senate to the House. So in about 10 minutes, they'll be coming back to the House, and hopefully they're actually going to do something. Okay, so he goes and lays. He's gonna go do. He's gonna go do a national war memorial ceremony now. That's what he does. The king walks from the Senate and does a national war memorial ceremony. I think the prime minister joins him. Let me see what's on Carney's schedule. What did dragging the king down here cost us? I think it was 1.5 million. That's what I heard. Yeah, they go to a national. They go to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. They go and do like a ceremony thing, and then he basically leaves in half an hour. He flies back. So there'll be like a media pool for that, where the prime minister will do his fancy wave to the king waves, and they part ways. What I'm curious is what happens to Parliament now. Because now that they're able to actually start getting stuff going, are they going to come back to the House and actually do work, or are they just going to adjourn for the day and call it quits? So let's turn on like CTV or something while we wait for them to walk back to the House.
Benefits. But then he goes on to say, in parallel, the government is working to strengthen its relationship with reliable trading partners and allies around the world, recognizing that Canada has what the world needs and the values the world respects. The fact that he was able to acknowledge in those two paragraphs, those, couple of sentences, that, look, there is a lot of commonality between Canada and the U.S., but if it can't happen, Canada is obviously forging its own path. Again, I do want to underline that this is the government's message, but it is coming in this case for the third time in history from a sovereign's mouth. What did you make of that statement?
Yeah, and it's interesting, Omar, because this is something that you've been hearing from the Prime Minister, is trying to include and trying to continue to really strengthen that and chart this new path. I mean, he had said during the campaign so many times you lost count of it, and how the relationship between Canada and the United States will never be the same again. And that now, with this language, talking about charting that new relationship, is really trying to set the table. And I think we saw that in Washington, D.C., inside the Oval Office, where they talked about this relationship. You saw how President Donald Trump treated Prime Minister Mark Carney, and a clear reset of how they were going to try and go forward. But Prime Minister Mark Carney has been clear that relationship is no longer the same, that we do have to look beyond our borders and beyond that relationship that we've had with our southern neighbors, so reliant on them for trade and for so many other things. And that is what he's trying to do here, trying to diversify our trade. And that was why that first trip that I had spoken about when he became Prime Minister before the election, both to France and to London in the United Kingdom, to try and talk about how Canada could reach beyond our borders. Those two countries, obviously founding countries of our country, but also those typical allies and historical allies, to try and make sure that Canada does these new things. And one of the things that struck me about that trip, Omar, was that before that trip, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's last trip overseas was to London, where there was talk for rearming Ukraine and trying to help them. And Prime Minister Trudeau was asked point blank whether or not Canada would be part of that coalition of the willing, and he didn't really give a straight answer to it. And then when we asked that same question to Prime Minister Mark Carney when he was in there as Prime Minister and leader of Canada, and when he met with Keir Starmer and then Emmanuel Macron, and he said yes, Canada would be. So a very clear message that Mark Carney is going to do things differently, and he wants to chart this new path and really look for new alliances on the world stage. Omar Vashi?
The News is reporting.
Yeah, we're just looking inside.
He won't do
as
question
MPs,
periods.
Kind of like
no, he'll have to do question
rock
periods.
Concert or something lined up.
Maybe not
to
for the
shake
first
hands
week,
with
but
the,
he'll have
the King and the Queen in a fashion we certainly don't normally see them doing so. All of them very excited, many of them pulling out their phones to take pictures. The King and Queen, the Prime Minister, and a number of other dignitaries will now head over to the War Memorial, which is actually where Omar and I are, and just behind us at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. They will lay a wreath before departing ultimately for the airport. I want to talk a little bit more about the content of the speech. Corey Tonight, Scott Reed, and Kathleen Monk are here to help us do that. Kathleen, what stood out?
PM question on Wednesday was something Trudeau brought in. I don't think Trudeau brought in it. It's been in the Parliament system for a long time. It's based on Westminster because London does that every Tuesday. They do Prime Minister questions, and Canada does it Wednesday instead of Tuesday.
I think actually, if you are from the defense,
his people may, but he won't. I haven't heard anything about that. Where did you hear that he's dropping question periods?
For the border agency to allow them to search
Prime Minister has
new
to do
exports.
question periods.
Also, there's actually a commitment in the speech to join Rearm Europe.
Let me find you a link.
So lots of defense commitments there, including rebuilding our army. Not a lot if you're looking for any mentions on healthcare or on employment insurance. If people are in fact concerned about a possible upcoming recession, not a lot there either for folks to chew on. But I guess the one takeaway beyond the true north is indeed strong and free line. I look at the cover that Prime Minister Carney chose to put on the front of this speech from the throne, an image of a backpacker with a big Canadian flag hanging off the backpack, climbing in Grossmorn National Park in Newfoundland. A really strong Canadian message about exploring and the future for Canadians. And that's a future that, as outlined in the throne speech, also includes things like attracting more talent, right? Trying to convince some expats, people who've moved abroad, to come back to Canada to strengthen our country and grow our economy. So lots of positive stuff in the speech. Only one real applause line for the King, but interesting nonetheless.
Corey, what's your read on the speech?
Well, I thought it was a very carefully crafted speech.
Yeah, I'm seeing. So Wednesday is going to be the first question period. This is confirmed by the Prime Minister's office. So the PMO's office has said that Wednesday will be the first question period, and that Carney won't be there. A source in the Prime Minister's office. So a source, but it hasn't been publicized. They're just saying a source. Like, he will be there for some days, but not specifically Wednesdays. I don't like that.
Ending from 9% down to 2%. Wow, boy, oh boy, that's not something that you heard in the Trudeau era. And then if you're looking at the things from abroad, I agree with the things that Kathleen was saying around defense spending, but
okay. Let's see what they're going to do here. There's MPs in the House waiting for the arrival of the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister is going and doing the War Memorial. And then he's going to see the King off. Why does the House need to wait for the arrival of the Prime Minister? anyone else find this confusing? Does like the Prime Minister have to initiate the Parliament? Like the Mace is here, we've got the Speaker here, we've got some MPs. More waiting. Yeah. I mean, this is a hard day for them, huh? Like, wow, what a day's work they've got to do. They've got to sit around all day and do absolutely nothing. Said there would be a question period today. I don't know, the PMO's office, the source that said the same thing, that he wasn't doing question periods, says that the first question period will be on Wednesday. And yeah, I don't know. So let's go back to
that phrase. That sort of sounds like a familiar phrase, except for the fact that our minds are cast to some overseas threats. When we say any continent, it's clearly meant to communicate that these days the hostilities come from Donald Trump in the Oval Office here on our shared North American continent. So I thought that it was pretty explicit by the standards of regal communication.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
All right, thank you so much. Not sure if I heard Corey wanting to say something. Corey, did you want to add something?
Well, I was going to point out that maybe the fourth Liberal term is actually a fourth Harper term in terms of many of the things that you say in here.
Let's not get carried away here, okay? The king's still in town.
But I was quite pleased with it.
All right, we'll let you guys continue that conversation and join you back hopefully in a few minutes' time. Corey, Kathleen, Scott, thanks so much. You see here live pictures of the Governor General and her husband, Whit Fraser, emerging from the Senate and now making their way to the National War Memorial behind me. And the Majesties will be laying a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier. It is, by the way, the 25th anniversary of that Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, so that will be happening in a few minutes' time. But let's head back into the Senate, where CTV's Michael Couture is standing by, speaking with a couple of MPs. And what are they telling you, Mike, about their reaction to what the King had to say?
Michael Barrett.
Yeah, it's interesting, Omar, because I'm here with Michael Barrett, who was one of the first in line there to greet the King and Queen. And so what was that interaction like? What did you say to them?
Well, it was really exciting to meet their Majesties and King Charles. He asked about the opening of Centre Block and was interested in when we'd return to the permanent home of the House of Commons and the Senate. And I said, we expected in 2031, and that I said, perhaps a break in protocol. I invited him to open Parliament in 2031, and he said he'd like to do that. So
that's fantastic. So obviously a historic moment. I want to dig into the speech a little bit. What did you think of it? First of all, what was in there that you thought made sense, and what was missing from it in your mind?
Well, it's really important coming out of an election that we see a plan from the government. Now, it's, I think, great to have His Majesty here to read the speech from the throne, but that speech is not a plan. And so today is great to demonstrate Canada's enduring connection, Parliament's connection to the Crown, and how that strengthens our democracy, but it doesn't lay out how it's going to strengthen our economy. We need to see what the government's plan is to reduce their inflationary spending, to help the cost of living challenges that Canadians have. How are they going to fund the programs that they allude to in this speech from the throne, whether it's on housing or on making our communities safer with changes to bail laws? So those details really are contained in a budget document, and that's what Parliament should be dealing with. That's what the House of Commons should be seized with over the next 4 weeks, but really over the next few months, though the Prime Minister plans for Parliament to recess at the end of June.
Yeah, and I know that the Prime Minister had also talked about how those calculations could be changed by meetings at NATO coming up in June. I wanted to ask you, because we had François-Philippe Champagne, the finance minister here, who said he's looking forward to a new sense of collaboration and really calling on all opposition parties to join them in really trying to unite the country behind them. And you saw in the throne speech a number of initiatives, especially the tough on crime stuff, that almost look conservative platform-esque. What did you think of that?
Well, I think that some of the best ideas that we saw in the Liberal platform and in the speech from the throne were lifted from conservative policies, and that's great. If they want to take on those common sense Canada First policies, that's fantastic, and we want to see the legislation, and that's why seeing a budget would be so helpful in us being able to predict which measures we can support the government on. And the bottom line on that is what makes sense, what puts Canadians first, that helps restore that affordability, that helps bring down that cost of living, that helps make houses more affordable, that helps make our streets safer, restores that promise of Canada. Those are areas they're going to find historic and profound cooperation while we're still maintaining our important job, our constitutional obligation to hold the government to account.
Before I wrap it up, I want to ask you, the throne speech as you see it now, will it get Conservative support?
We're going to have to see what the implementing legislation is that goes behind all of the policies that were proposed today. So we're hopeful that the government will put forward a plan that we can support, and the key criteria for that have been well laid out. They know what to expect from us, and it's really all about putting Canada first, putting Canadians first.
Okay, I appreciate your time. Michael Barrett, Conservative MP, who got to meet the Royals earlier today. Send it back to Vashi and Omar.
All right, Mike, thank you so much. And again, live pictures here in the country's capital, the nation's capital. There you see a shot of the Governor General. Before that, the Prime Minister and his wife, Mark Carney and Diana Carney, making their way now to the National War Memorial, which is directly behind where Vashi and I are broadcasting from this morning. And from there, we know that Their Majesties will lay a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier. That will be happening in just a few minutes' time. Let's just take a moment to listen in and try to make out a little bit of what the Prime Minister is saying as he greets quite a sizable crowd here in Ottawa. It looks, though, that the shot has now changed back into the Senate building where the King is now departing with the Queen. Let's listen.
Just up here to the left. Just come on the road. Your Majesty's office.
Give more space. Guys, give us more space.
Well, there are 2 cameras. I just need 1.
And we'd like to take a quick moment to welcome our viewers from Ontario who are now joining us on CTV main network as the King and the Queen depart the Senate from where he has now delivered a historic throne speech, only the 3rd time since Confederation, since 1867, that a sovereign, a monarch, has delivered a speech from the throne.
Sorry.
Yeah, the crowd, Omar, has really, in the last 30 minutes, just populated itself enormously. They've moved over basically from the Senate. Now they're crowded right in front of the Chateau Laurier. It's like half a block that the King and Queen have to walk to get to the tomb of the unknown soldier, where they will be laying that wreath. But the crowd is noisy. They're excited. The second the King walked out of the Senate, for example, the crowd kind of erupted into cheers and applause. They are genuinely really pumped about all of this.
And somebody who has a front row seat to all of this jubilation and this excitement is CTV's Abigail Beeman. Give us a sense, I mean, as Vashi was mentioning, Abigail, just in the past little while, that there has been a huge swell in the crowd size. What are you seeing where you are?
So Omar, we're just having some connection issues, and I can't exactly hear your question, but I'll just set the scene for you. As you can see, I'm here by the tomb of the unknown soldier, and we know that the Governor General, as well as the Prime Minister, have already walked the short distance over from the Senate. And in the last minute and a half, I would say, we heard huge cheers from the crowd, and we understand that the King left the Senate building. So we are waiting for their Majesties to arrive here at the tomb of the unknown soldier, where they will lay a wreath. The tomb of the unknown soldier, as part of the war memorial here, was set up in the year 2000. So this is the 25th anniversary of that tomb, and that is what this wreath laying will commemorate. There are some other portions of the ceremony as well. We know that the last post will be played by a bugler. We see the RCMP here as well. There is much color to the ceremony, and this is another piece of this downtown Ottawa moment that is open to the public. So, of course, the hundreds of people who are here to see the King, there are many gathered on all sides of the war memorial, or a few sides of the war memorial as well, for those who didn't get a chance to see the King and Queen in the carriage making their way towards the Senate, hoping to get a chance to see the King now. And we're hearing some reaction in the crowd as well. So I will throw it back to you, Vashi and Omar.
Yeah, we've been hearing these spontaneous cheers as the royal couple come closer to the position that we are at. The King and Queen, taking their time not only to meet with the politicians and the dignitaries who are inside that Senate chamber not long ago, but also with the people who've gathered. And certainly in the past little while, Vashi, to your point, I mean, there has been a massive, a huge swell in the number of people who've gathered. And it doesn't hurt that it is just the most picture perfect Ottawa day that you could have. Blue skies and sunny skies to experience this historic moment. And as Abigail mentioned, the royal couple will now be making their way. They're actually not that, from where they are now to the National War Memorial, it's not a huge distance at all. It's very close. And so they will be there to lay a wreath. And there's such a beautiful symmetrical shot behind us of that ceremony as it's about to get underway. And I believe we're cutting to that shot right now as people are getting ready for that moment. And this will be basically the last event that they have before the royal couple then moves on to the airport, to Hangar 11, which is, of course, the hangar where the VIPs arrive and leave from, and make their way back to the UK for a trip, by the way, that has been a whirlwind. I mean, it's been less than 24 hours that they've been on the ground in Canada, but making quite a statement in that time.
Yeah, very much so. In all of the when you look at the kind of them greeting the crowds here, it's what they did all day yesterday too. They went to a series of stops between the airport, for example, at Lansdowne, which is just that way, in the afternoon. And then they went to Rideau Hall. And all along the way, there have been Canadians who assembled. This is definitely the biggest crowd that I've seen over the last 24 hours, but the King certainly taking his time, like he did, as you pointed out, inside the Senate chamber to meet with the MPs, to shake the hands of everyone who had assembled, to do the same for the Canadians who are proudly displaying their patriotism through the flags that they're all holding at this point. Everybody kind of in order, standing politely, waiting to welcome the King and be able to, and the Queen, I should say, and to be able to shake their hands. When they do make their way eventually, which shouldn't take too long, over to the tomb of the unknown soldier, it actually lies at the foot of the National War Memorial and contains the remains of an unidentified soldier who had been buried near Vimy Ridge in France. This year, I think you said it before, is the 25th anniversary of the repatriation of that unknown soldier, so there is inherent significance there as well. The King and the Queen will.
So if Carney's already walked over there and done his bit,
to pay homage to them,
why can't he just walk over to Parliament and, I guess, start whatever he needs to do to get Parliament going? Because on Parleview right now, the House of Commons is just sitting waiting for the Prime Minister.
Just a few short steps from where he is right now. The crowd cannot get enough. They are, as I said, packed in here, right into downtown Ottawa. A distinct security perimeter around it, but not too rigid to keep the King away from being able to shake all their hands.
In a moment, by the way, we should say that is important for the country and this country's history, but also significant for their monarchy as well. I mean, at a time, as you know, there have been debates for decades about the monarchy's relevance. This is how the king and queen are showing their relevance, essentially saying through an act of soft diplomacy that Canada, we've got you. We're there to support you at this time when your very existence is being threatened by your southern neighbor. Not explicitly saying that, but certainly when you dissect the language and the nuance of the language in that throne speech, that's exactly what this message is. Again, those spontaneous cheers, that's exactly what this message is. And the fact that that speech, even though it's the government's message coming from the king's mouth, is all the more significant. They don't seem to be rushing, which is nice to see. They're taking their time meeting the crowds.
Yeah, Mike's point I thought was a great one. If you recall, when those threats were being levied against us, the constant references to the 51st state, we were all wondering where the king was. Where is the monarchy? Where is the governor general even representing the monarchy? And everyone was kind of tight-lipped. Fast forward a few months, obviously with a newly formed government in place, an election in the rearview mirror, there is a different sense now of the degree to which the monarchy is willing to say something about Canada's sovereignty, and that in fact was the case in the throne speech. I think it will have a lasting impact on Canadians who had been kind of waiting and watching and wanting this moment to happen to one degree or another.
And as I'm looking over my left shoulder, I can see their majesties make their way closer to the tomb of the unknown soldier. So really they're just steps away from where that wreath-laying ceremony will be taking place. Again, the 25th anniversary of the tomb of the unknown soldier, containing the body of, the remains, I should say, of an unknown soldier from the Cabaret Rouge British Cemetery in the vicinity of Vimy Ridge, France. Let's get to Richard Berthelsen, who is our royal commentator. Richard, let me just get your reactions, first of all, to the speech itself. What did you make of it?
I think the speech was very careful. You have to really deconstruct throne speeches as far as the king's concerned, sort of three sections. There's sort of some personal comments at the beginning, there's the government's agenda in the vast majority of it, and there's some personal comments at the end. Of course, the comment about that this is indeed the true North, strong and free, obviously really caught those assembled in the Senate, and they broke into applause, which is not always the case with throne speeches. I will just point out, the true North, strong and free is also the words that are on the plane that is flying the king over here. So that is a very key part of our national anthem, obviously a key part of this. I mean, I think the biggest thing we can say about this whole visit has been the visuals, the crowds, and a sense of the monarchy itself in Canada being reinvented as a real bulwark against, other views about where Canada should be, and a real reinforcing of our sovereignty. So that also comes out very strongly in the speech, but it's really the visuals, the response of the crowd, and the way we perceive the institution that is really the legacy here.
Today, the House of Commons has to go over the privilege rights, then the pro forma bill. Speaker then reports on the throne speech. Then they have up to 6 days to debate it. Debate what? What are they debating in the throne speech? I see from that PMO source that the first question period will be on Wednesday. So I don't really think there's... And they also, in the first 10 days, have to select members for the committees and organize the committees. And then the committees themselves and each individual respective committee has to appoint a chair. So I guess the rest of the day in the House of Commons is just standard housekeeping stuff. And then, let me flip over to the House. What's the House at right now? Still awaiting for the arrival of the Prime Minister. So I don't get why they can't start that work, the privilege rights and the pro forma bill, until he arrives. What? Internal economy, yep. Then the president of the Treasury Board goes over the info, budget info, PROC committee gets named. Yeah. That's what I was saying at that point there. Internal Economy Board gets decided, and from there, the clerk, along with the Treasury, will pick committees and budgets for those committees and stuff. If you look over the bench there, Your Majesty, that's savage. Yep. So, I mean, I still don't understand why they can't just get that going much quicker. It's a really slow start for the first few days. I understand there's housekeeping to do, but I mean, there's work to be done on behalf of Canadians. That's what you're elected to do, and there's only so many weeks before they take their summer break. So basically eating up the first week with just standing around, sitting around in the House, walking from the House to the Senate, and, not actually voting on legislation or anything yet seems like a long journey for housekeeping. I mean, it's 2025. We could speed those things up much faster. These MPs are just sitting here doing nothing. When do they get back from summer break? It's a 3-month recess. So I believe it's September. Let me check the actual calendar. They sit until June 20th, and then they get the last week of June off. They get all of July, August, and then they come back in September. They come back September the 15th. The 15th. September. Yeah, I'm just waiting to see this housekeeping in the House. And then that's pretty much it. Okay, so the Carney's still there. He has his last little photo op, and then I'm pretty sure he walks over to the plane with, or goes to the airport with Charles. They have their final little wave and send off, and then Carney comes back over to the House to do housekeeping. It doesn't say on his itinerary though that he's going to the House of Commons, so. I mean, you'd like to think they'd be a bit more organized on that. I'm seeing that some MPs are going to react to the throne speech with a media scrum in Parliament. So I bet you we can check that before they end up going into House to do final housekeeping for the day. Carney sure likes to spend money. How much did this cost Canadians? I don't know. I've heard anywhere between 1.5 to 3 million. It's somewhere around that figure. I mean, considering we're spending like $1 billion a day on interest on our debt, I think it's quite a small number in comparison. What's the fuel for those jets? More than that for security too. Yeah.
You brought the weather with you. We had to have one of those fishing rigs around the tip of the screw.
It's not. We've got the right black and southern before you
Sounds the full person. Yeah, all right, yes, sir. Join the speech.
Straight and narrow. Make sure he delivers all right.
Yes. It means the world to deliver. We'll come
King Charles and the Queen about to enter their vehicles to head back to the United Kingdom after what has been a whirlwind trip here in Canada, less than 24 hours. And saying their final goodbyes at the National War Memorial, where they have just laid a wreath to mark the 25th anniversary of the tomb of the unknown soldier. Before that, the King delivering the speech from the throne, a historic speech from the throne, only the third time that has happened in this country's history.
Some crowd management going on as they get ready to, there's like a whole motorcade of vehicles behind us as they get ready to take the King and Queen to the airport. He's sticking around. They're sticking around, though, to greet almost everybody who has lined up. You know, of course, a long line of dignitaries, but also stopping to shake hands with so many people who had come out to witness the ceremony of what took place. It was nice, you know, there was lots that took place in the Senate, but it was really nice to see the part of this that took place out here.
And just observing him and the Queen, I mean, he's really taking his time to meet people who've been standing outside, some of them for hours, before the events got underway this morning, to take part in, as we said, a very historic occasion for this country.
Abigail,
greet the couple.
Pardon me, Abigail. I was just going to say Abigail Beeman is on the ground right there where all of this is taking place. Abigail, that sort of mini Remembrance Day ceremony, you could call it. It was so much like what we do see on November 11th every year. It was quite moving.
It was. That's a great way to move it, to put it, quite moving, especially with that moment of silence where there are really hundreds, if not thousands of people here. I can't quite get a full sense of it. And to hear that silence fall over the crowd as people reflected on just what was happening. And I know you laid it out before with that wreath laying at the tomb of the unknown soldier, the 25th anniversary there to commemorate the 116,000 Canadians who have given their lives in service, and to watch that and to watch the crowd taking that moment in was very moving. We saw the King lay that wreath that was handed over to him by a retired sergeant, and then we saw the Queen place those flowers on that tomb. Going back to what you mentioned in terms of their Majesties and the King especially really taking the time to meet all these people, it may seem brief, that handshake or that word from the King, but really when you think about how fast this trip was, I'm just, looking at the clock, and we're not even at the 24-hour mark since the King touched down here in Ottawa. So to have the chance to meet really hundreds of Canadians, and I've been at a number of these stops over the past 24 hours, it is really remarkable. And for those people who, as you've referenced, have been waiting for hours for a chance to spot, and in a best case scenario for them to have a word with or to meet the King, is really something that will have a lasting impact on the Canadians who are here today. Something else that I'll note, as I don't think I've mentioned before in our coverage, taking in the sights and sounds from today, you can see that some of the uniforms of the people at these events still have an ER rather than a CR. So a reference to Queen Elizabeth. I spoke with a member of the Dragoons yesterday at the airport whose insignia still has ER on all of the buttons, and I asked, when is this going to be changed over, and they didn't really have an answer, but sort of just signifying that it's still relatively new, that this is the King's first visit to Canada as King, and there are still marks of his mother here. I reference it because the piper behind me had that large ER that was quite visible. So just another of the many symbols that we've been discussing throughout the course of the King's visit here, and it sounds like they've moved off that National War Memorial and will be heading in that motorcade back to the airport for the wrap-up of a quick but impactful visit to Canada. I'll send it back to you, Vashi and Omar.
As those overhead shots now show us the motorcades departing there at the National War Memorial. And what a fitting way to end this. I mean, every time I hear that bugler on Remembrance Day or on a day such as today, it really gives me chills. I mean, they're paying tribute to the men and women who've fought, who've sacrificed their blood, sweat, and tears to form what this country is. And really, that's what this visit is all about, too. It's celebrating all that makes Canada what it is, really paying tribute to its values, honoring the progress that it has made, and really fundamentally affirming the fact that it is, as the King said, Vashi, in the throne speech, the true North, strong and free.
Yep, very much. Even, as far as you're talking about the ceremony that took place, the younger girl who gave the Queen the wreath that she ultimately laid at the foot of the tomb of the unknown soldier, her father, Master Corporal Scott Francis Vernelli, paid the ultimate sacrifice during his third combat mission in Afghanistan back in 2009. He lost his life. And so even the symbolism in that, right, that she was the one there who was giving the Queen that wreath so that she could lay it at the tomb of the unknown soldier, marking 25 years since the unknown soldier was repatriated right there to the War Memorial that you are looking at head on. Afia Hagen, our royal commentator, has been watching along with us throughout this afternoon. As this visit comes to a conclusion, Afia, your takeaway, like what stands out to you about what we just saw over the past few hours take place?
I mean, the visuals are always so strong when it comes to these royal visits, whether it's, the armed forces out, whether it's the pipers, that aerial shot that you had just now of the motorcade moving away from the war memorial, the tomb of the unknown soldier. And of course, it's such a beautiful day as well. These visuals are so important. The pomp and the pageantry that we see is a real reinforcement of what the monarchy is all about. And of course, it's linked to Canada. It's a real reminder for the whole world.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what goes on now. Like, are we going to get to work here? Are we going to do anything? Or are we all just going to sit around for the rest of the day in the house? Oops. Sorry, let's go back. Why can't I see my taskbar? Why am I seeing my taskbar? What is going on here? There we go.
the United States relationship and talking about, the opportunity that Canadians have to reinvent themselves, have the largest transformation of its economy since the Second World War, trying to put a positive spin, perhaps, on where the relationship with the United States has been. I think, really significant that King Charles sort of went there, really felt like he was going there in that speech. But like I say, the pomp, the pageantry, all the visuals that we have are so striking from this 24-hour whirlwind visit. And I think one of probably the most significant royal visits we have had in recent years, the most impactful, the most significant, one that's come at a really crucial time.
Yeah, the context, Omar, right, that Afia points out is, I think, really important here. It's why there are so many eyeballs on this throne speech in particular, this visit from a monarch. It's the timing of it all, right? We are facing down what a year ago we would never have thought would have happened, with our closest friend and ally in the...
Yeah, okay, so that's pretty much it. House is starting to fill up, so that's telling me that they are actually coming back to do something. I mean, who was it? Steve, you said there was, like, the pro forma bill to do. We can go back and listen to Vashi still.
From start to finish, the planning, the execution of this, it is kind of like a magical sight to behold.
And happening very rapidly. I mean, as Richard Berthelsen was telling us not too long ago, I mean, these royal visits and tours take months to plan. The fact that this happened so quickly, which was necessary in the context of what we're seeing with these, the relationship with the United States, and the royal couple really making sure that they want to present an image of being there for Canada at this time of tension. But also, back to what we were saying, this is a hugely pivotal moment for the monarchy too, right? For them to be able to demonstrate their relevance when, a lot of the time people are debating, whether this institution has any merit in our day and age. They showed today that in this time of so-called need, at this time of, when Canada's existence is being challenged by our southern neighbor, that they're going to show up, and they're going to show up quickly to be able to show Canadians that they're able to be there. And again, I mean, we've said it over and over again, but it has been only the third time since Confederation that a monarch has delivered a speech from the throne. So absolutely significant.
He made special reference in that speech to our national identity. Our correspondent, our colleague, Rachel Aiello, was actually at the airport awaiting their arrival there, the King and Queen's arrival there, with our Minister, I believe, of National Identity, Stephen Guilbeault. Rachel, I'll throw it over to you.
Technical issues.
All right, it looks like we might be having some audio issues with
she'll
Rachel
be there
Aiello.
soon, yeah.
She will. No, they're just working on that. We'll join her. But as we mentioned, the royal couple leaving here from the National War Memorial and then making their way to the Ottawa Airport, Hangar 11, from where VIPs leave and eventually depart. That journey is about 25 minutes, although, with some of those roads blocked, they will probably make it there between 10 or 15 minutes. We're going to take a quick break and see you on the other side in a couple of moments. Stay with us.
Waiting for PM. Man, they've been sitting here for like an hour and a half. Like, just waiting for Prime Minister to show up so they can, get to work? Like, what the heck's going on here? Oh my God. I don't want to watch the CBC, but I'm curious to see. They probably loved it.
Would do well to consider that.
Yeah, I mean, it was, whether you are a big fan of the monarchy or not, Althea, it was a reminder of sort of the fundamental pieces of Canada's history and identity. And I don't know if that in itself is just reassuring for Canadians at this moment.
I think so. I think most importantly, it's a political tool for Mr. Carney to tell Canadians that he is different than Justin Trudeau. Right. Because he has the King read the throne speech as opposed to the Governor General that Prime Minister Trudeau chose. So that in itself is a big symbol. And yes, I think in the wrap of the entire election campaign in terms of Canada's sovereignty vis-a-vis the threats from U.S. President Donald Trump, it fits into that narrative. But I think it is about a fundamental change that the Carney government is trying to say and to communicate to Canadians. And we saw that in the content of the throne speech as well.
Aaron, what did you make of both the King's specific comments and just sort of the context that we're in?
Yeah, I think the value of this, you can feel however you want about the King, you can feel however you want about the monarchy. I think today's, top value or sort of biggest benefit was as a reminder of just how Canadian institutions work and how different they are from the United States. We might pine for some of the drama and showmanship of a State of the Union address, and I think something like today is a reminder that we have a very different system, and I think in many ways a system that is a better tribute to democracy, at least a Canadian democracy. And I think there's value in sort of making that clear. Some of this speech is obviously going to make headlines in the United States and elsewhere, but I think it's the biggest takeaway should be that we have very different political institutions here, and there's value in them.
I want to play another moment. And again, this was a line written by the Prime Minister's office, but delivered by the King and got rousing applause and will be, I think, to Aaron's point, one of those moments that perhaps gets the attention of the people who need to get it. Let's listen.
As the anthem reminds us, the true North is indeed strong and free.
So again, just that line from the anthem, that it is indeed the true North, strong and free. So Andrew, the intent behind the speech was twofold, right? And we can talk about the policy explanations. But if the other intent of the speech was to send a message to Donald Trump, did it do that? Will it have got the attention of the president?
Well, we'll have to see. He pays closer attention, apparently, than we realize. He was, quoting or citing the leaders' debate at one point. Yeah. So you never know. He does have a particular thing for royalty himself. He constantly remarks upon it. But I think it's more that the image that was presented of a country united behind its king. I don't think you can put to the margins the monarchy aspect of this. And I think this may prove to be actually a watershed moment. It was very interesting. Even people who were skeptical of the monarchy, when this first started to come out, we're saying Charles should speak out.
Yes.
Almost in spite of themselves.
Yeah.
And now he's done so. And I think what may be happening here is we're getting over a kind of an adolescent period in our history where we kind of thought we had to distance ourselves from that somehow that we would grow up more if we put aside our past. I think perhaps in this moment of crisis, maybe we're realizing is you need roots, you need heritage to have strength. That's what gives you self-confidence to move forward in the world. It's this consciousness of what you've done together in the past. And monarchy and the crown is part of that. So I don't think it's coincidental that he was getting such a rousing reception from the crowd.
Yeah, I mean, that is sort of what the Prime Minister has been trying to do, Althea, is try to position the country in relation to its history and its roots in the face of Donald Trump. And it has led to certainly renewed patriotism. I wonder, how long those anchors will be how long Canadians will feel those anchors beyond today.
Well, I would probably argue that actually it was Justin Trudeau back in February who kind of got the whole Canadian sovereignty, the pride, the buy local, the check your labels going. But I think it was, I feel like a broken record, but in contrast to Justin Trudeau, who so many felt had moved towards more of this post-national government that Andrew is talking about, where we were talking about Canada in a different way in terms of cultural identity, but not in terms of our history. But I think it's important to take a moment and pause that version of Canada doesn't speak to a lot of Quebecers. It doesn't speak to a lot of Canadians who don't see themselves in those traditions and in that history, who don't feel like they're part of that as well. So I think it is a balancing act that the government kind of needs to be aware of, because still, 44 members of the Liberal caucus are from Quebec, and a lot of them feel like, the king is the oppressor, is not something to be celebrated.
Yeah, certainly members of the Bloc feel that way, but other members in Quebec as well. That is not a sentiment that they might be sharing today, whether it is real or not. We're just looking at some pictures there at the airport where the king and queen are expected momentarily. Aaron?
Carney's arrived here, so I want to see what housekeeping is going to happen in the house. I don't really like listening to Rosemary either, so I totally agree with you there, Catherine. Carney's taking his seat. It looks like we've got a full house almost here, as much as we're going to get for today. And I want to see if they're actually going to get to work to do anything. Or are they just going to... Or are they just going to adjourn? Okay, here we go.
I say it again. Order! I'll read it both languages. I have the honor to report that the House, having attended on His Majesty the King in the Senate chamber, I informed His Majesty that the choice of Speaker had fallen upon me, and in your names and on your behalf, I made the usual claim for your privileges, which His Majesty was pleased to confirm to you.
I have the honor to report that the House, having attended on His Majesty the King in the Senate chamber, I informed His Majesty that the choice of Speaker had fallen upon me, and in your names and on your behalf, I made the usual claim for your privileges, which His Majesty was pleased to confirm to you.
Mr. Carney, seconded by Mr. McKinnon Gatineau, moves for leave to introduce a bill respecting the administration of oath of office. This motion is deemed adopted. Mr. Carney, seconded by Mr. McKinnon Gatineau, moves that the bill be now read a first time. This motion is deemed adopted.
First reading of this bill, première lecture de ce projet de loi.
I just read this one. I read it. I have the honor to inform the House that when this House did attend His Majesty the King this day in the Senate chamber, His Majesty was pleased to make a speech to both houses of Parliament, and to prevent mistakes, I have obtained a copy which is as follows. Shall I dispense?
Yes.
You read well.
Right on.
Sir.
Here.
I know. It's just say, Mr. Speaker, I understand just how exceptional that was, and I'm deep appreciation of the House. I also understand how exceptional. I think it's a reflection of how exceptional today is. And I move, Mr. Speaker, seconded by the Leader of the Government in the House of Commons, that the speech of His Majesty the King, delivered earlier today to both houses of Parliament, be taken into consideration later this day. Thank you.
Mr. Carney, seconded by Mr. McKinnon-Gatineau, moves that the speech of His Majesty the King, delivered this day from the throne to both Houses of Parliament, be taken into consideration later this day.
Is it the pleasure of the House to adopt the motion?
Yes.
Carried. Carried. The
Honourable Minister of Finance and National Revenue. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and congratulations on your election.
Is taking real action to bring down costs for Canadians. Therefore, pursuant to Standing Order 83-1, I would like to table in both official languages a notice of Ways and Means motion containing measures that will deliver real change by cutting taxes for Canadians, bringing down costs and putting more money in the pocket of Canadians, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to Standing Order 83-2, I ask that the order of the day be designated for consideration of this Ways and Means motion, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Pursuant to Standing Order 15.3 of the Conflict of Interest Act for members, it is my duty to table the list of all sponsored travel by members for the year 2024 as provided by the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner.
President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. Speaker, I move, seconded by the Secretary of State's Combating Crime, that the business of the supply be considered at the next sitting of the House.
Mr. Ali, seconded by Ms. Sahota, moves that the business of supply be considered at the next sitting of the House. Is it the pleasure of the House to adopt the motion?
Yes.
Carried. Carried.
It is my duty to inform the House that 4 days will be designated for the business of supply, ending June 23rd, 2025.
The Honourable House, Government House Leader.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and once again on my behalf, congratulations on your election. Mr. Speaker, there have been consultations between the parties, and I believe that if you'll seek it, you will find unanimous consent to adopt the following motion. That notwithstanding any standing order or usual practice of the House, until the end of the current supply period, ending June 23rd, 2025, A. Standing Orders 81.4 and 81.5 be replaced with the following. Main estimates and any supplementary estimates shall be deemed referred to a committee of the whole House immediately after they are presented in the House, provided that 1. A Minister of the Crown, after consultation with the House leaders of the other parties, shall designate 4 days to consider these estimates in committee of the whole at the ordinary hour of daily adjournment on each day for a period of time not exceeding 4 hours. 2. The said Committee of the Whole shall convene for the sole purpose of asking questions to the government in regard to the estimates. 3. During the time provided for the consideration of estimates in Committee of the Whole, A. No member shall be recognized for more than 15 minutes at a time, and the member shall not speak in debate for more than 10 minutes during that period. B. The 15 minutes may be used exclusively both for debate and for posing questions to a Minister of the Crown or a Parliamentary Secretary acting on behalf of the Minister. C. When a member is recognized, he or she shall indicate how the 15 minutes is to be apportioned. D. Members speaking during the debate may indicate to the Chair that they will be dividing their time with one or more other members. E. No quorum calls, dilatory motions, or requests for unanimous consent shall be received by the chair. 4. At the conclusion of the time provided for the debate, or when no member wishes to speak, whichever comes first. A. On the fourth designated day, but in any case not later than 2 sitting days before the last allotted day in the current period, the estimates shall be deemed reported back the same to the House. B. On the 4 designated days, the committee shall rise. The debate pursuant to Standing Order 38 shall not take place, and the House shall immediately adjourn to the next sitting day. And B. Standing Order 8114A be amended by replacing the words 24 hours written notice shall be given of a notice to oppose any item in the estimates, provided that for the supply period ending not later than June 23rd, 48 hours written notice shall be given of a notice to oppose any item in the estimates, with the words 24 hours written notice shall be given of a notice to oppose any item in these estimates for the supply period ending not later than June 23rd. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All those who oppose the Honourable Minister moving the motion will please say nay.
D'accord. La Chambre.
The House has heard the terms of the motion. All those who oppose the motion will please say nay.
Adopté.
Carried.
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to submit a message from Her Excellency, the Governor-General of Canada, signed by her own hand.
Son Excellence la Gouverneure.
Her Excellency, the Governor-General, transmits to the House of Commons the main estimates concerning the funds necessary for the funding of the public federal administration for the period ending March 2026, and pursuant to Standing Order 54 of the Constitution Act 1867, recommends that these estimates to the House of Commons.
Governor-General transmits to the House of Commons the main estimates of sums required to defray expenses of the federal public administration for the fiscal year ending on March 31st, 2026, and in accordance with Section 54 of the Constitution Act 1867, recommends those estimates to the House of Commons. The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to table in both official languages the main estimates 2025-2026.
The day.
Order of the day, consideration of the speech of His Majesty the King to both Houses of Parliament.
Honourable Member for Calgary Confederation.
Before I begin my remarks, I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered on the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. Mr. Speaker, I'd also like to congratulate you on being elected by the members of the House yesterday. We have conferred upon you great responsibilities as Speaker, and though I have known you only a brief time, from that time I am confident you will serve this Parliament well. Today is a momentous day for this country, and an unforgettable day for all of us in this chamber. I am personally honored to rise in this House as a newly elected Member of Parliament. I'd like to thank my family for their love and support, my wife Lori, and our children, Annalise, Ben, and Sam. I ran for office in no small part because I want them to have the opportunities Canada provided me, and then some. I also want to thank my volunteers. Without them, none of this would have been possible. Mr. Speaker, We have all just been through a vibrant election campaign just a few weeks ago. Canadians were given the chance to look at the options that the candidates for office put before them and then make their choice by casting their ballot. It's democracy at its best. The results
of this election meant that every one of us in this House has earned the respect of their constituents. I would like to congratulate each and every one of my colleagues, members of this House. In the beginning of this parliamentary session, I commit to working in collaboration with all of you on behalf of those who sent us to this place.
I am deeply honored that the people of Calgary Confederation have put their trust in me to be their representative of Parliament. As a proud Albertan and a proud Canadian, I stand here today in this chamber in genuine awe of the responsibilities that have been bestowed upon me and all of us at this important moment. This is a great nation, a nation of 10 provinces and 3 territories, all working hand in hand with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people with whom we share our history. We are a nation of regions from coast to coast, but we are one nation. It is especially important at this moment in our history that we remember this. No matter where we come from in this wonderful country called Canada, we are called upon to work together as a united people. And that, Mr. Speaker, is at the core of our government's agenda to build a better and stronger Canada. It is at the core of the speech from the throne. So let us review some of the highlights. We are at a critical point in our nation's history with regards to our place in the world and the system of global trade. We face a turning point that we cannot shy away from. The trading system is changing, and we must understand that the relationship with our trading partners is evolving. It is a turning point that requires us all to accept what needs to be done and work together to accomplish it. In the throne speech, our government faces that reality. Canadians understand that since the Second World War, our world has never been more dangerous or unstable. But amidst this instability, there is an incredible opportunity. Our government intends to lead a confident Canada into the largest transformation of our economy since the Second World War. We will stay true to our values and build new alliances to strengthen our economy. As the throne speech reminds us all, Canadians can give themselves far more than any foreign power on any continent can ever take away from us. Mr. Speaker, as Canadians, we all know of the long-standing relationship our country has with the United States. It dates back many generations. We have friends there, we have family there, I am no exception. It is a relationship of 2 good neighbors built on mutual respect and a desire to strengthen each other's economy and national security. This year has brought fresh perspective to that relationship, one which has awoken patriotism of Canadians and sharpened our resolve to maintain our national identity. The Prime Minister has been clear about his own resolve. He has visited the President of the United States in Washington, D.C., and as the throne speech notes, he and the President have begun to define a new economic and security relationship between our countries. That relationship will remain rooted in mutual respect and will be founded on our common, yet sovereign, interests. And as we move forward, we will work towards delivering transformational benefits to both countries. But as we do this, Mr. Speaker, our government is determined not to avert our attention away from the rest of the work ahead. Canada has much of what the world wants and needs, and so our government will be strengthening Canada's relationship with reliable trading partners throughout the world. We will work towards building a coalition of nations that believe in cooperation and are ready to engage in the free exchange of goods, services, and ideas. Canada can lead the way, and this will become even more apparent when we chair the G7 summit in my home province of Alberta next month. Mr. Speaker, I would now like to turn my attention to something closer to home. Throughout the country, many Canadians are having difficulty paying their bills. The cost of living has become unaffordable for many people. They are struggling to keep up and to get ahead of the daily pressures. Our government will act to help Canadians get ahead. We are reducing middle-class taxes as part of our economic agenda. This is a priority for us. Canadians can count on it. The tax cut will put money back into the pockets of Canadian families. It will save the average 2-income family up to $840 a year. We will cut the GST for homes at or under $1 million for first-time home buyers. This will deliver savings of up to $50,000. We will also lower the GST on homes between $1 million and $1.5 million. And as we do this, Mr. Speaker, we will take concrete steps to double the rate of home building in this country using technology, skilled work, and lumber that comes from Canada itself. We will take action to ensure the housing market works better, including by cutting municipal development charges in half for all multi-unit housing. The plan is clear. The government will drive the housing supply up to bring housing costs down. The bottom line, Mr. Speaker, is our government knows Canadians need relief, and we are supplying it. We will ensure the future sustainability of programs that have already saved families thousands of dollars a year. This includes childcare and pharmacare. And it also encompasses the recent expansion of the Canadian Dental Plan, which is now available to another 8 million Canadians, saving the average family more than $800 per visit. Mr. Speaker, our government has a fundamental goal with regard to the Canadian economy. It is our core mission, and that mission is to build the strongest economy in the G7. As we move towards that goal, it is imperative to recognize that we must create one Canadian economy out of 13 economies. For far too long, we've been held up by internal barriers to trade and labor mobility, and these barriers cost us as much as $200 billion per year. The throne speech made clear our government will introduce legislation to remove all remaining federal barriers to internal trade and labor mobility by Canada Day. We are moving quickly because the time for action is now. We cannot delay. The premiers of several provinces and territories have already taken steps to remove barriers. Our government is committed to working with all the others to continue moving in this direction. As we move this way, it's important that we as Canadians recognize that this is a time not only to build, but to build big. We must now build major projects to further secure our national economy and create high-paying jobs that will last for generations. To assist in this, our government will create a new major federal projects office through which time needed to approve projects will be shortened from 5 years to 2 years, a goal that would make us among the best, if not the best, in the OECD. This will be done while upholding Canada's environmental standards and its constitutional obligation to Indigenous peoples. Mr. Speaker, removing these obstacles will put Canada in a better position to withstand any trade war we might experience. The change will create jobs and make us stronger. And as the throne speech says, it will enable us to become a superpower in both green and conventional energy. That's a message that Canadians from all regions should hear, and certainly music to Albertans' ears. Mr. Speaker, the government recognizes that Canadians have legitimate concerns about the safety of their neighbourhoods and streets. We will introduce legislation to enhance security at our borders. We will introduce new tools for our law enforcement and intelligence agencies to stop the flow of fentanyl. The criminal code will be toughened to make bail harder to get for repeat offenders convicted of crimes such as car theft, home invasions, and human trafficking. The Canada Border Services Agency will be given new powers to crack down on the stolen car trade to prevent the transport of illegal products. To further protect our communities, the government will hire 1,000 more RCMP personnel. We will take action to stem gun violence through changes to firearm licensing and the use of scanners, drones, and helicopters to stem the flow of drugs and guns across the border. Earlier, Mr. Speaker, I spoke of how we live in a world of uncertainty and instability. Our government has a responsibility to protect Canada's sovereignty, and we will do that. The government will rebuild, rearm, and reinvest in the Canadian forces. We will work with our European allies to strengthen transatlantic security. And we will invest in the Canadian North as part of our commitment to keep the country safe from existing and emerging threats. Mr. Speaker, as an Albertan and the son of a Quebecer, I am proud to live in a country where French language and the Quebec culture are embodied in our very national identity. The throne speech makes clear our government values and respects this country's official and Aboriginal languages. Moreover, it is a commitment to protecting the institutions that are a showcase for those cultures, like CBC Radio-Canada. Our government is also deeply committed to upholding fundamental obligations to advancing reconciliation with Indigenous peoples. We must and we will assist in the creation of sustainable prosperity for them. As part of that, we will increase funding for the Indigenous Loan Guarantees Program to help more Indigenous communities own major projects. Also central to our identity is the pristine beauty of our land. Canadians are rightly proud of their natural habitat. Our government will protect this distinct feature of Canada by creating new national parks and marine protected areas. Mr. Speaker, for many decades, Canadians have taken great pride in our immigration system. It has helped paint the portrait of the Canadian mosaic while also fueling the engine of the economy. Maintaining public trust in the system is integral for the system itself to be sound. Our government will take steps to build trust and restore balance. We will place a limit on the number of temporary foreign workers and international students while taking steps to attract the best talent in the world to come here and join us in building our economy. Mr. Speaker, let me end with some remarks about this government's commitment to responsible fiscal management. Our government brings a new approach to this matter. The throne speech notes that the government's operating budget has been growing by 9% every year. And that must change. It will change. Our government will bring in measures to reduce the growth of that budget to below 2%. Moreover, we will set a responsible target for deficit reduction. This government will balance its operating budget over the next 3 years through responsible and prudent fiscal management. Transfers to provinces, territories, and Canadians themselves will be maintained. These, Mr. Speaker, are the actions of a new government determined to set concrete objectives to build Canada into a stronger and more prosperous nation for its people. Today's throne speech provides a roadmap for how we will get there. It is an ambitious agenda. It is an agenda that Canadians working together can achieve. So, Mr. Speaker, I move, seconded by the honourable member for Therese de Blainville, that the following address be presented to His Majesty the King in the following words. To the King's most excellent Majesty, most gracious Sovereign, we, Your Majesty's most loyal and dutiful subjects, the House of Commons of Canada, in Parliament assembled, beg leave to offer our humble thanks to Your Majesty for the gracious speech which Your Majesty had addressed to both Houses of Parliament.
Well done. Thank you, sir. Yeah, very well done.
Mr. Hogan, seconded by Madame Chenette, moves that the following address be presented to His Majesty the King in the following words. To the King's most excellent Majesty, most gracious Sovereign, we, Your Majesty's most loyal and dutiful subjects, the House of Commons of Canada, in Parliament assembled, beg leave to offer our humble thanks to Your Majesty for the gracious speech which Your Majesty has addressed to both Houses of Parliament. Questions and comments? The Honourable Member for Edmonton Northwest.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals put forward a plan that includes a section on Canadian unity, but doesn't mention the West once. The Liberals offer empty words on making Canada an energy superpower, but provide absolutely no concrete action to spur investment and growth in our energy sector. This is what the Prime Minister's Energy Minister did in Calgary last week. Empty words, void of tangible commitments. Let's be clear. The job losses and cancelled projects in our energy sector are the direct result of Liberal laws and policies. To make Canada an energy superpower, it begins with repealing the Liberal anti-energy laws. Yes. Yes. Repeal Bill C-69, the No New Pipelines Act that blocks energy infrastructure. Repeal Bill C-48, the oil tanker ban that landlocks our energy. Repeal the oil and gas production cap that will kill 54,000 jobs and gut $20 billion from the Canadian economy, much of them in my own riding. The Energy Minister failed to do it, so here's the chance for the Prime Minister to unequivocally commit to undoing the Liberal anti-energy laws. Will the Prime Minister repeal the No New Pipelines law, repeal the oil tanker ban, and repeal the oil and gas production cap so Canada can build energy infrastructure and get our resources to market?
The honourable member for Calgary Confederation.
Yes or no?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I was with the Minister of Energy when he made that speech, and I think the vibe in the room was very different. What you ended up hearing was a very positive response from people who were looking forward to turning a page and having more productive conversations, something I would encourage all members to take to heart. Now, it's not surprising he got a positive response, given that Liberals got the highest % of vote in Calgary than they'd had in generations since 1968. This is a new government that will bring new balances to our energy and environment conversations. And those are needed because I'll remind the members opposite that pipelines were going down to failure long before any of the bills that they listed as possible reasons for those. In fact, Northern Gateway didn't manage to pass court challenges because the environmental reviews, the Indigenous consultations were deemed too insufficient by the courts, a problem that this side of the House has cleaned up.
The Honourable Member for Gaspésie, les Îles de la Madeleine. Restez gauche.
New Bloc MP.
Mr. Speaker, first, allow me to thank warmly the people of Gaspésie and the Magdalen Islands for putting their trust in me. I will endeavor at every occasion to be worthy of their confidence. And the throne speech doesn't leave any space for the interests of our regions. It's really focused on the importance of protecting our economy from Donald Trump. But yet, the throne speech doesn't talk about the forest industry in Quebec and its needs in terms of the softwood lumber disputes. It doesn't talk about aluminum, even though there are sectors that are struck by these U.S. tariffs. It doesn't talk about fisheries. It's such a precious and fragile industry whose exports depend too much on the U.S. So this text was read by a British monarch that could have been written in London because it was so disconnected from the needs of Quebecers or the needs of the Quebec regions in this document.
For Calgary Confederation.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the honourable member for his question.
Of regions, I know this well as an Albertan, but a speech of this nature is about the nation as a whole, and there is much detail to come afterwards and much discussion to have in the days to come.
The honourable member for Winnipeg North.
No, not Kevin. No.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians elected.
The House gremlin is back, guys. He never even left the House.
This is the first test, I guess. Is that? So, the honourable member for Winnipeg North.
Mr. Speaker, I miss my Conservative friends too, especially Pierre. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, Canadians elected. I'm going to start from the beginning there, Mr. Speaker. Canadians elected a new government here in Canada, Mr. Speaker. A government that understands the benefits of building a strong economy, a strong nation for all Canadians, Mr. Speaker. We have seen that clearly demonstrated in the throne speech that was delivered by the King of Canada earlier today.
Hear, hear.
My question to my friend and colleague from Alberta, would he not agree that one of the most impressive initiatives that the Prime Minister had taken day one was to give Canadians a tax break that is going to save and cost hundreds of millions of dollars that is going to be going into the pockets of Canadians in every region of our country?
Honourable member for Calgary Confederation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wholeheartedly agree with my colleague. I think that this is just another example of how this is a new government bringing a new agenda, and Canadians will be well served by that government in the weeks, months, and hopefully years to come.
Okay, the honourable member for Long Range Mountains.
Mr. Speaker, it's an honor to rise as the first Conservative woman to ever serve the province of Newfoundland and Labrador in the House of Commons. Mr. Speaker, I was born and raised, laid roots, and built a career in Newfoundland and Labrador. But unfortunately for young people today, building a life in Newfoundland and Labrador is becoming a distant dream. Too many are forced to pack their bags and head elsewhere across Canada. The blame is with the federal government for implementing policies that block investment and kill major projects that create jobs young people could build a life on. I've combed over this speech, and I can't seem to find any firm commitment for young Newfoundlanders that want to build their lives and stay in the province. Will the Prime Minister commit to reversing anti-energy Liberal laws, excessive red tape, regulation, and high taxes that are crushing the dreams of young people in Newfoundland and Labrador?
The honourable member for Calgary Confederation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to congratulate the honourable member on her election. From coast to coast to coast, this throne speech speaks about economic opportunity. It talks about the ways that we are going to build things, the ways that we are going to grow things, and most importantly, the way we're going to do it quickly, because time is not our friend. There is a commitment within the throne speech to have a major projects office and to move the approval of projects from 5 years to 2 years. As I mentioned in my remarks, that would make us among, if not the best, in the OECD. So I am optimistic for the future. I hope the honourable member across the way will keep an open mind as we implement this agenda. Thank you.
Honourable member for Vancouver East. There's limited time, but the member has the floor.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and congratulations to my colleague for his election. New Democrats will be here to hold the government to account, of course, and collaborate where it is possible, notwithstanding that we don't have official party status. My question to the member is this. On the issue around housing, and we all heard it on the ground during the election campaign, there is nothing in the throne speech that talks about renters. There's nothing in the throne speech that talks about building social housing and co-op housing and recognizing that it was the Liberals that canceled the National Affordable Housing Program. And in the throne speech, there is no measures to address housing profiteering. Is it because the Minister of Housing is saying affordability is not an issue faced by Canadians? So my question to the member is this. What is he going to do to ensure social housing and co-op housing?
Okay. A very brief answer by the member for Calgary Confederation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Very briefly, this is a throne speech that is heavy on housing. It takes a land, sea, and air approach to housing that reduces the costs of developing, reduces the costs of building, and increases supply through the largest actions since World War II.
To housing.
President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to the Standing Order 32-2, I have the honor to table, on behalf of the Minister of Finance, a document in both official languages entitled Report on Federal Tax Expenditures 2025.
The honourable member for Saanich Gulf Islands on a point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As you may have been aware, Mr. Speaker, although it is some distance from your chair, that as the honourable member from Vancouver East, there has been a certain amount, unfortunately, more heckling than one would want on a day when we receive the speech from the throne.
Sit down.
But I'm being heckled as I make this point, Mr. Speaker. In your election, there were many commitments made in this place from many quarters that we wanted Parliament to show better decorum. On the part of my ability to understand and hear the member right next to me, the heckling was rather too loud. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Of course, it's noted, and I remind all members that we have to be able to hear what is being said. So we'll go now. Reprise du débat.
Resuming debate, the honourable member for Thérèse de Blainville.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, colleagues, before I begin, I'd like to recognize that we're here on the unceded territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation. And Mr. Speaker and dear colleagues, I'm humbled and enthusiastic to take the floor as a Member of Parliament for Thérèse de Blainville. It's an honor for me to be here today on behalf of my constituents in Thérèse de Blainville to deliver this speech. I appreciate how fortunate I am, as my friends and family often hear me say. Mr. Speaker, I congratulate you on your role, as well as all members of this House. I look forward to working with you all. First and foremost, I'd like to express my gratitude for the trust that my constituents have placed in me. Thank you for your questions, your commitment, and all your suggestions. I'd like to extend my warmest thanks to my husband Claude, my family, and the volunteers who supported me all through this campaign. In my previous role as Canada's ambassador to the OECD, I was deeply concerned about the place of democracy in the world. I'm pleased to see that our Canadian democracy is strong and healthy. Respect was evident in all our conversations. It's with a deep sense of responsibility that I speak today in this place, which embodies our country's democratic values. As mentioned in the throne speech, major changes are underway for all Canadians. These are fundamental changes that offer Je
suis très heureux d'être ici avec le chef adjoint des conservateurs, Melissa Landsman. Et tout d'abord, j'aimerais remercier Sa Majesté d'avoir présenté un discours devant le Sénat pour renforcer nos traditions parlementaires, une tradition qui date de 800 ans. Une tradition qui protège la liberté des citoyens et une tradition qui a aidé à créer les promesses du Canada que chaque personne qui travaille fort peut avoir une belle vie, une belle maison dans une communauté sécuritaire, unifiée sous notre fier drapeau. C'est ça la promesse pour laquelle nous avons travaillé pendant les élections. Alors, les conservateurs cherchent à renforcer les buts que la vie devienne encore abordable, que les gens qui travaillent fort aient des plus grands chèques de paie capables d'acheter une belle vie pour leur famille et qu'ils peuvent vivre sans peur de la criminalité, qu'on brise la dépendance économique qu'on a sur les Américains. Donc, on cherchait dans ce discours des solutions pour que le Canada réalise ses objectifs. On a entendu beaucoup de slogans et de messages que le gouvernement a copié-collé des conservateurs. Malheureusement, il n'y a pas eu des plans spécifiques pour la mise en œuvre. Par exemple, ils promettent de développer des grands projets, mais refusent de mentionner l'élimination de C-69, le projet de loi anti-développement, l'interdiction sur les navires pour transporter notre énergie outre-mer au lieu d'aller simplement aux États-Unis. Il parlait de la criminalité, mais refuse d'annoncer l'élimination de la loi C-75, la loi sur la libération conditionnelle et automatique des criminels très, très dangereux. Ils ont utilisé des slogans sur le contrôle des dépenses, mais n'ont jamais mentionné une seule chose que le gouvernement va éliminer en tant que dépense de ce gouvernement qui est morbidement obèse. Donc, nous sommes ici afin de proposer des vraies solutions, c'est-à-dire de couper la bureaucratie, les consultants, le BS coopératif, l'aide à l'étranger pour réduire l'inflation, la dette et les taxes. Nous sommes ici pour proposer des vraies solutions pour bâtir nos ressources ici au Canada en éliminant le C-69, le plafond sur les énergies, les zones prêtes à bâtir afin de développer nos ressources naturelles, révoquer les lois libérales sur la libération des criminels récidivistes pour réinstaurer la sécurité dans nos rues et de le faire de façon réelle. Donc, encore, on a vu des messages sans plan. M. Carney s'est présenté comme un homme avec un plan. Mais ce qu'on voit, c'est des slogans sans un plan spécifique. Nous allons mettre la pression pour faire avancer des bonnes idées et finalement d'encourager M. Carney d'introduire un budget. Un budget, c'est un plan. Un budget va montrer la grandeur du déficit, les économies qu'il propose de trouver et de protéger notre économie contre l'inflation et la surdépendance sur les États-Unis. Donc, c'est ça qu'il faut. Il faut un vrai plan et c'est ça que les conservateurs vont avancer en tant qu'une opposition. Et nous sommes là pour travailler avec le gouvernement afin de mettre en œuvre ce plan et de transformer ces messages en actions véritables et concrètes. Thank you very much, everyone. And before I begin, let me thank my Deputy Leader, Melissa Lantsman. We join today in thanking His Majesty for coming to Canada and delivering the throne speech, reinforcing our ancient British liberties, a parliamentary system that goes back 800 years, a system that has served Canada well and has been the foundation of what I love to call the Canadian promise, that anyone who works hard gets a great life in a nice, affordable house on a safe street. That's the promise that we as Conservatives ran to restore, and it's why we were able to get 2 million more votes and 24 more seats. We inspired a lot of people that we would fight for that Canadian promise and bring forward that hope. And we were looking for that promise and that hope in this speech today. We did see a lot of the right slogans and political talking points, but no clear plans to get it done. One slogan dealt with controlling government spending, but there were no specific savings to roll back the morbidly obese Liberal government's costs. We saw promises about getting things built, but no mention of oil and gas or pipelines. Pipelines are, of course, the thing we most need to build. Didn't get one mention. Nor did they mention getting rid of the anti-energy laws that have kept our resources in the ground. C-69, the no development law. C-48, the shipping ban. The energy cap. The electric vehicle mandate. All of these things were left out of the speech altogether. No specific plans to get anything done, even though, as the Prime Minister has said, we are in a crisis to break our dependence on the American economy. They mentioned crime, but refused to say that they would repeal the Liberal catch and release bail law, C-75, or the house arrest law, laws that have allowed rampant chaos and crime to overtake our once tranquil streets. No mention of overcoming the opioid crisis and replacing tax-funded drugs and legalization with treatment and recovery. No mention of real plans to get taxes under control by reducing the cost of government. So we're here to turn the government's talking points into real plans. We pledge to work with the government to repeal the anti-energy law, C-69, repeal the energy cap, the electric vehicle mandate, the offshore shipping ban. Let's get our pipelines building. Let's get our goods to markets other than the United States. We're here to propose cuts to bureaucracy, consultants, foreign aid, and corporate welfare so that we can bring down taxes, debt, and inflation. Let's repeal the catch and release laws so that we can restore safety to our streets. Let's invest in treatment and recovery to bring our loved ones home drug-free. In other words, let's replace the talking points with real plans to get it done. That is what Conservatives pledged to do. That is what Canadians voted for us to fight for, and that is what we will deliver. Thank you very much.
So will you support the siege from the throne if there's stuff you can support in it?
There are some messages we want to see is planned. So we're going to put forward what we consider to be a constructive amendment that will add very specific plans. So for example, the government says they want to get projects built. Great. We've got just the plan to do it. Repeal C-69, the anti-development law. Repeal the energy cap, the offshore shipping ban, the electric vehicle mandate, and unlock the incredible investment that could bring jobs and self-sufficiency to Canada. They say they want to reverse course on crime. Well, we've got the plan for that too. We will put forward an amendment that says that they should repeal C-75, the catch and release bail law. They say they want to get their spending back kind of hilariously under control after decades of overspending. Well, we've got plans for that too. So our amendment will put real plans in place rather than slogans and talking points.
The NDP says this speech could have essentially been written by a Conservative government. Do you agree?
Well, I would have written a different speech. So the speech that I would have written would have said the things that I just said now.
Monsieur Poilievre, est-ce que vous pouvez nous dire où vous en êtes avec la démission de votre député Québec pour vous ouvrir la porte à une élection partielle? On en est où là-dedans?
À ce que je sache, il compte le faire dans quelques semaines, après avoir présenté un discours à la Chambre des communes.
Quel effet peut avoir le discours du trône sur nos relations avec la Maison-Blanche? Est-ce que vous pensez que c'est un discours qui fait en sorte que Donald Trump pourrait écouter davantage?
J'ai pas compris.
Est-ce que vous croyez que ce discours-là du trône pourrait faire en sorte que Donald Trump écoute davantage le gouvernement canadien dans ses négociations?
C'est difficile à dire ce que M. Trump va écouter, évidemment, mais je crois que le gouvernement doit se concentrer sur l'autosuffisance ici au Canada. Personne ne va pouvoir contrôler le président des États-Unis. Ce qu'on peut contrôler, c'est ce que nous pouvons faire ici. C'est pour ça que nous avons un plan pour l'autosuffisance. L'idée que le Canada devrait pouvoir produire ses propres produits et d'exporter outre-mer au lieu de dépendre pour à peu près 80% de ses exportations aux États-Unis. C'est pour ça que nous voulons des spécifiques afin de développer nos ressources et diversifier nos marchés pour la marchandise.
Can I just ask that question in a different way? Can we just to pick up, a lot of this, having the king, whatever, was meant to assert something about Canada to the world. Did you take that away from the speech? And what do you think the impact of all that messaging is on how people perceive us, including but not limited to Donald Trump?
You know, it's been a centuries-old debate between Canada's primary relationship with the Crown and with our closest neighbor. We saw that as far back as John A. Macdonald. We saw it again in the free trade debate. I think it is important to reinforce the British traditions of our parliamentary democracy and to reassert that we have a centuries-old friendship with the United Kingdom. Those traditions survive today. The place behind me right now is following many of the same rules that were scribbled on parchment hundreds of years ago in Britain. And all, of course, this was the result of the Great Magna Carta, an 800-year-old tradition that basically created liberty under the law. So I think it's important that the world recognize that we have those ancient traditions, and that the Americans recognize that we are an independent and free country that will make its own decisions. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
Okay, so kind of the same rhetoric that we've heard throughout Pierre's campaigning and everything. We know the Liberals aren't going to repeal C-69, unfortunately. Liberals aren't going to change Bill C-75. They might amend it, but they're not going to change it. It's going to stay pretty much where it is. And it's just kind of, that's the same thing. No way this lady's still talking. Bro, how long has she been talking for?
Is a country where official languages...
That's crazy. She's like the new, who was it on the Liberal side? I guess I could even just say Kevin. And Kevin will just go on for like hours sometimes. But anyway, I think I'm going to call it here for the for going live today. We'll be live tomorrow for the kind of first question period, which I think Carney's not going to attend. I mean, you guys are kind of right. I did look up a lot of the news and stuff, and they say that Carney won't be attending the question period on Wednesday for tomorrow. So we'll see. We'll see if he shows up. If he doesn't, if not, it'll be Scheer versus whatever front bench Liberals want to answer the questions. He'd probably be McKinnon a lot. You get some champagne and whatever. Joe Lee might get questioned. But, yeah, it's almost kind of sad because, Gould's a backbencher now. She's not even a minister, so there's nothing really to answer. She's not really going to answer much. She wouldn't be there to speak on behalf of, I was going to say it's kind of boring because I liked Pierre and Trudeau debating each other. And now we're going to have Scheer, and we probably won't even have Carney show up half the time. I think Scheer's a good debater. It's just it's not going to be as interesting as it was. You're not going to have Trudeau screaming and yelling across the aisle. And Scheer doesn't usually get that outraged either. So, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and call it here. And thanks, everybody, for watching. Tune in tomorrow, and I'll try and get live around, I think Wednesdays it opens at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it pretty much gets right to question period. So I will see you guys tomorrow, and can't wait until September when we get Pierre back. Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much what we need, is we need Pierre back in the house, and I kind of agree. Somebody said earlier he's becoming a little bit too nice. I noticed that before, because I have clips of him on my channel from like a year to almost 2 years ago now, and he was really much more outspoken, and I feel like he did kind of get a little bit conservative on, like, not conservative party, but I mean conservative in the way that he was expressing some of his opinions. Still has the same opinions. I don't think he changed. It's just he didn't view them as outright. He didn't say them as outright. So, yeah. I will see you guys tomorrow. Everybody have a good evening and good afternoon, and cheers.